starting from Douluo, shocking all the worlds. Hey! Look who's back for more adventures. We love having you here to continue this story that keeps us all awake. Important note, all of this is pure fiction. So don't try any techniques you hear here in real life, your neighbor might call the cops. This amazing novel and all its rights belong to the original author. We're just the ones giving it voice and drama. Are you enjoying the show? Prove it by subscribing to our YouTube channel and leaving that like that motivates us so much. And if you want VIP access to exclusive content, our Patreon is waiting with things you won't find anywhere else. Chapter 326 Exposed, Shot. With the passage of time, when the competition entered the final stage, Tang San on the field finally used his unique move, using the shattered 8 spider lance fragments of the spirit bone as hidden weapons, and shot them out instantly. The 7 soul masters including Ziyu from the Wuhan temple had already reached their limits, so how could they stop this sudden attack? Coupled with the terrifying toxicity contained in the spirit bone fragments, the 7 of them fell to the ground as soon as they were hit. In the place where the 7 people were injured, it became even darker in an instant. Such a change made all the audience on the field change their faces. Even Pope Bidong, who sat on the honorable throne with a peerless face and graceful figure, was shocked. But what followed was a strong murderous intent released from her eyes. The participating teams of Wuhan Academy lost in their own home game, Wuhan City. This is simply a disgrace. But just when Bidong couldn't help but want to make a move, Ningfengzi of 7 Treasure Glazed Tile Skull and Douluo, advisor of Shrek Academy, stood up from their positions one after another. Chrysanthemum Douluo and Ghost Douluo from Wuhan Temple are also here. Seeing Ningfengzi and Douluo stand up, their expressions suddenly darkened. You two, this is Wuhan City, you'd better think clearly before doing anything, Chrysanthemum Douluo said even more flatly. As a result, just as he opened his mouth, Douluo snorted coldly. You can't even beat a child? What face is there to talk here, you? Chrysanthemum Douluo's face became grim in anger. He wanted to scold Douluo for going back on his word, but when he felt the suspicious eyes from Ghost Douluo and the Pope, he could only suppress his anger. Seeing this scene, even Ningfengzi became curious about what happened between Zhu Douluo and Poison Douluo. But Douluo didn't get entangled with Zhu Douluo anymore. After seeing that the other party was honest, he shifted his eyes to Bidong. Your Majesty, what Tang San used in the end was a spirit bone, which belongs to his own strength, and his spirit bone contains toxins that even I cannot resist. So if His Majesty the Pope still cares about those little guys, please announce the result of the match, and let Tang San detoxify them. And only Tang San can cure this poison. Huh? Are you threatening me? Hearing Douluo's words, Bidong's expression darkened instantly. She stared at Douluo, and the aura exuding from her body became stronger and stronger. War is imminent. But at the end, as if thinking of something, Bidong suddenly withdrew her aura again. There was a smile on her face and she nodded. Since this is the case, the Wuhan Academy team conceded in the final, and the winner is Shrek Academy. Sect Master Ning, please recover for these little guys first. Facing Bidong's compromise, although Ningfengzi was puzzled, he didn't think too much about it. He released his martial spirit 9 Treasures Glazed Tower directly in front of everyone. When the 9 Treasures Glazed Tile Pagoda flew into the air, it turned into a pagoda more than 10 meters high in the blink of an eye. This is the real body of the weapon soul of the 9 Treasures Glazed Tile Pagoda, also known as the 9 Treasures Avatar. In the past, it would not be surprising for Ningfengzi to use his own martial soul. But now his 7 Treasures Glazed Pagoda has become the 9 Treasures Glazed Pagoda. In addition, Ningrongrong, the little princess of the 7 Treasures Glazed Tile School, is also the 9 Treasures Glazed Tile Pagoda. A pair of 9 pagodas instantly shocked the soul masters present and couldn't help gasping. Is this 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School trying to defy the sky? Even Pope Bidong's eyes of Wuhan suddenly tightened, and the murderous intent that had just been suppressed came out again uncontrollably. But it's a pity, Ningfengzi is not worried about his own safety with the protection of Chen Zhen, who is also a titled Douluo. On the contrary, he felt the shocking eyes from everyone now, and suddenly he could understand why that kid Tang Ge liked to pretend force so much. It turns out that this feeling is really cool. For a moment, the corners of Ningfengzi's mouth could not help but slightly curled up, revealing a smug smile. He didn't seem to notice Bidong's killing intent towards him. As he waved his hands, 8 rays of light flew out from the 9 Treasures Glazed Pagoda, covering Tang San on the competition stage and the 7 competing spirit masters from the Wuhandian Academy. On the side, seeing Ning Fengzi's performance, Jian Chen couldn't laugh or cry. This suzerain is afraid that he will be spoiled by that boy Tang Ge soon. Under Ning Fengzi's treatment, the injuries on Tang San and the 7 people in Wuhandian were now stabilized. After Tang San woke up, under Bibi Dong's urging, he immediately absorbed all the toxins from the 7 people in the spirit hall. The 7 people were out of danger and were carried down by the people of Wuhandian. Tang San, who stayed on the competition stage, couldn't help crying with joy when he learned that Shrek Academy had won the championship, and immediately embraced his companions. Xiao Wu was also among them, but apart from being happy for Tang San, worry flashed in her eyes, and her small hand gently touched her heart. There is the love-sickness heartbroken red that she has been keeping close to her body. But this elixir had fallen out in the previous competition. Outside the game, Tang Ge, who was in the hotel, saw this scene with the help of Yan Ting Dishi. He shook his head involuntarily. It's still too early to be happy, as predicted. Just after Tang San rejected Bibi Dong's invitation and distributed the 3 spirit bones rewarded by this champion, the original harmony of the scene was suddenly broken. Take that little girl, the aloof Bibi Dong pointed directly at Xiao Wu among the Shrek students, and ordered sharply. Chrysanthemum Douluo and Ghost Douluo understood what His Majesty the Pope meant, so they were ready to attack. But Poison Douluo Dugubo and Sword Douluo, who was signaled by Ning Fengzi, stood up at the same time, and the aura of a tidal Douluo directly locked the two of Zhu Jiui. Ning Fengzi looked at Bibi Dong, and said, Your Majesty, let her go, what? Could it be that Sect Master Ning also took a fancy to this soul beast that took human form, and wanted to turn it into his 9th soul ring when he broke through to tidal Douluo? In other words, your 7 treasure glazed tile skull wants to be an enemy of my spirit wall? Bibi Dong stood up from the chair, saying with murderous intent on her face. As soon as these words came out, Xiao Wu's pretty face instantly turned pale. Besides Tang San, Dai Mubei and the others present couldn't help looking at Xiao Wu, their eyes full of disbelief. Xiao Wu is not a human? Even Yu Xiaogang, who was about to come out to speak for Xiao Wu, was shocked. In any case, he never thought that a little girl who appeared in front of his eyes as early as 6 years old was actually the incarnation of a 10-year-old soul beast. Seeing this scene, Ning Fengzi couldn't help sighing. For the 7 treasure glazed tile school, facing Bibi Dong's threat, he hesitated after all. But just after such a hesitation, Bibi Dong made a sudden move, using her soul power to condense a big hand and grabbed Xiao Wu directly. End of this chapter. Chapter 327. I am God Tang, I come on clouds. In front of the Pope's palace. Bibi Dong's move was so sudden that when everyone present reacted, the opponent's big hand condensed with soul power had already arrived in front of Xiao Wu. Little dance, Bibi Dong, don't even think about hurting my student. Accompanied by Tang San's angry and anxious shouts, Yu Xiaogang, Flender, and Liu Erlong launched the 3-in-1 fusion skill in desperation. Xiao Wu, who was surrounded by soul power, suddenly became desperate in Bibi Dong's resentful eyes. She couldn't help looking at Tang San, who was rushing towards this side, and whispered reluctantly, Brother San, I promise to be with you for the rest of my life. Xiao Wu reneged first, but at the moment when the big hand with soul power was about to grab Xiao Wu, a figure suddenly galloped from a distance, and appeared in front of her in the blink of an eye. I saw this figure swung out a fist and collided with a big hand of soul power, and there was a deafening loud noise immediately. However, in the aftermath of the explosion, even though others couldn't help but retreat, the mysterious figure that appeared was firmly nailed in place like a rock. His tall and strong body kept Xiao Wu safely behind him. At the same time, the other party's deep voice also reached Xiao Wu's ears. Sister Wu, with Daming here, I will never let anyone hurt you. He called me Miss Wu? Hearing what the figure standing in front of her said, Xiao Wu's pale face was startled for a moment, and then she seemed to think of something, and suddenly became pleasantly surprised. You are Daming, Sister Xiao Wu. Daming is here to look for you. The tall and strong body slightly turned half of the body, revealing a square and steady man's face, with a pair of deep eyes looking at Xiao Wu with concern. He was Daming, who mixed into the arena with other Soul Master Academy contestants. Although Xiao Wu didn't know why Daming suddenly turned into a human being and appeared here again, after getting the other party's confirmation, she was surprised and anxious at the same time. She couldn't help but said, Daming, she is the enemy who killed my mother. Hurry up and leave me alone, Miss Wu. I'll take you along. After speaking, Damon was going to grab Xiao Wu's hand. But Bibi Dong on the high platform behind suddenly snorted coldly, "No matter who you are, if you dare to oppose my spirit hall, don't even think about leaving here today. Everyone takes action, and those who dare to resist will be killed without mercy." At the same time as the order was issued, an extremely terrifying aura erupted from her body. Then, under the astonished gazes of Du Gubo, Jian Shengxin, Ning Fengzi and others, Bibi Dong slowly rose into the air, and emerged behind her with the Wuhan Death Spider Emperor. One after another soul rings rose slowly from under her feet. 2 yellows. 2 purples. 4 black. When the 9th spirit ring appeared at the end, a dazzling red light erupted immediately, making the already terrifying aura instantly reach its peak. Du Gubo, who was enveloped by this aura, was shocked to find that he couldn't move. Jian Shen wanted to attack, but following Bibi Dong's order, countless soul saints and soul masters of the Contra level gathered from all directions. This is the main city of Wuhandian. Soon, they were surrounded by a large number of soldiers and soul masters. Among them, after Chrysanthemum Douluo and Ghost Douluo looked at each other. While showing their martial spirit and spirit ring, they even made an echoing voice. The field of bipolar stillness, they actually launched the big move from the very beginning. Suddenly, with a consumption of surging soul power, the time and space in front of the Pope's palace seemed to be frozen, and everyone lost their ability to move. Among them, Da Ming, who just appeared, was treated with more emphasis. Therefore, more than half of the power of the 2 poles of stillness exerted by Chrysanthemum Douluo and Ghost Douluo was exerted on him, causing him to lose his mind for a while. And at the moment of this momentary trance, Bibi Dong, who was floating on a high platform, suddenly stepped forward lightly, and her whole body flickered and disappeared in midair. In the blink of an eye, she appeared in front of Xiao Wu. Looking at Xiao Wu's familiar face, Bibi Dong couldn't help stretching out her hand to caress it, and said, "You are as stupid as your mother. Why do you have to go to the human world?" Hearing Bibi Dong's words, Xiao Wu's body trembled slightly, but she gritted her teeth and didn't let herself take a step back. She said with red eyes, "I will definitely avenge my mother." Roar. Seemingly discovering Xiao Wu's crisis, Da Ming, who was bound by the static domain of the 2 poles, was finally forced into a rage, and opened his mouth to let out a dragon chant. As he no longer maintained his human body, and turned back into the real body of a flood dragon soul beast, he finally broke free from the static domain of the 2 poles. Under the huge shadow, a cyan dragon nearly, meters long appeared in the sky above the Pope's palace. It poked out its huge dragon head, stared at Bibi Dong who had put her hands on Xiao Wu's shoulders below with majestic eyes, and a booming sound came from its mouth. "Human. Let go of Miss Wu, or I will wash your human world with blood." Dark clouds gathered in the sky, and thunder burst out. A storm is coming. The appearance of the flood dragon caught everyone off guard, and when Du Gubo and the others came back to their senses, they were shocked to find that the burly man who appeared just now was actually this flood dragon soul beast. And judging from the terrifying aura of Jian Long, this is definitely a soul beast with a soul age of more than 10 years. So much so that the other figure that was originally hidden in midair was affected by the breath of the flood dragon, and coupled with the rolling thunder all around, it couldn't help being forced to show its body. He held a silver white hammer in his hand, surrounded by 9 soul rings. Among them, the 9th soul ring is actually a 10-year level red soul ring like Bibi Dong. "Tang Hao, I didn't expect you to come here too. Could it be that you have been reduced to cooperating with the soul beasts in the Star Dao Forest to deal with my spirit hall?" Witnessing the appearance of Flood Dragon Soul Beast and Tang Hao, Bibi Dong's pupils suddenly constricted, and then she couldn't help mocking coldly. But her right hand that was casually placed on Xiao Wu's shoulder tightened unknowingly. Obviously, even as the Pope of the Spirit Hall, Bibi Dong felt tremendous pressure when facing 2 opponents who were as strong as her own. But in her heart, today she has decided that even if she uses all the strength of the Spirit Hall, she must leave the girl in her hand and the dragon in the sky behind. 2 10-year-old soul beasts are enough to further her strength and realize the ambition she has always had in her heart. In the sky, Tang Hao glanced at Jialong not far away, and then his eyes fell on Bibi Dong again. He seemed to see the other party's thoughts, and immediately snorted coldly, "Stop talking nonsense. Tang Hao, will settle with your spirit hall today." Just when Tang Hao was about to directly use his weapon Soul Avatar to bombard the Pope's palace below, a sudden burst of light laughter came from far and near. "Demons are not demons, Dao is not Dao, good and evil are in people's hearts. Desires are not desires, love is not love, marriage is determined by God. I am God Tang, and I come here on the clouds. End of this chapter. Chapter 328. Besides me, who else is qualified? Accompanied by this unrestrained laughter came from a distance. The original extremely dignified atmosphere in front of the Pope's palace was instantly broken. Whether it was Bibi Dong, Daming, Tang Hao or the like, they all involuntarily looked in the direction of the laughter. Then, everyone saw a white cloud slowly approaching in the sky. Above the white clouds, there was a figure in green clothes standing with his hands behind his back, appearing to be at ease. It wasn't until this figure in blue riding white clouds appeared above the Pope's palace that his appearance was completely revealed. It was Tang Ge. Seeing this, Oscar, Mo Hongjin and Ning Rongrong in the square were first startled, and then shouted out in surprise. Boss Tang, you are finally here. Tang Ge, we are here. Xiao Wu is in danger, hurry up and save her. Among them, even Tang San, who was about to do his best because Xiao Wu was caught by Bibi Dong, couldn't help being full of hope immediately. It seems that in their eyes, Tang Ge is a living god. As for Daming, Du Yubo, Ning Fengzi, and Sword Douluo who knew Tang Ge's strength well, they couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. This kid disappeared for so long, and finally reappeared. It's just that Tang Hao didn't know about it. So even though he was surprised by Tang Ge's way of appearing on the stage, thinking of the current situation, he frowned and gave a low shout. Why are you here at this time, boy? Why don't you leave quickly, Uncle Tang? I've already come, so let's leave later. What's more, Xiao Wu is still in danger now. Hearing Tang Hao's scolding, Tang Ge suddenly chuckled. Tang Hao couldn't help but his face twitched, and he cursed secretly in his heart. Since this kid still stays here knowing that there is danger, is it possible that he really thinks that he is the opponent of that woman? Unexpectedly, what surprised him was that the Jiaolong transformed from the strong man next to him also recognized Tang Ge. Seeing Tang Ge's arrival, the Jiaolong asked anxiously. Tang Ge, save Miss Wu, it's you, Daming. Don't worry, with me here, I won't let your little Miss Wu suffer any harm. Facing Daming's request, Tang Ge smiled and nodded. It's just that these words were heard by all the soul masters in Wuhan Hall, but they were like Chiguaguo's mockery. Suddenly bursts of angry reprimands sounded one after another. Presumptuous! You dare to speak so boldly in front of His Majesty the Pope, you are courting death. Where did the ignorant boy come from? I advise you to leave quickly, or stay here with him. Stop talking nonsense with him, take him down first. Among them, as Pope Bibi Dong's right-hand man, Ghost Douluo looked even more ugly, ready to release the martial soul fusion skill, and directly grabbed the soul master standing on the white cloud in midair. But as soon as he made a move, he felt as if his arm had been grabbed by someone. When Ghost Douluo turned his head to look, he realized that Zhu Douluo had grabbed his arm. He couldn't help frowning and said, Yuguan, what do you mean? Don't go, don't say it's you. Even if you and I join forces, we are no match for this person, and we will even lose badly. Facing Ghost Douluo's questioning, Zhu Douluo smiled wryly and shook his head. As for the reason, he really didn't have the face to say it. But after Ghost Douluo heard this, he was taken aback. He knew that Zhu Douluo would not say this easily. But since the other party said it, he must not be lying to himself. Could it be that the young soul master on the white cloud is really that powerful? For a while, when Ghost Douluo looked at the past again, his heart suddenly became suspicious. And he had a vague feeling that the name Tang Ge seemed to have been heard somewhere. But when Ghost Douluo was thinking wildly, Bibi Dong, who was standing next to Xiao Wu, remembered the list of seed players from each academy in the Soul Master competition that had been sent from Heaven Dao City some time ago. Among them, in Shrek Academy, apart from Tang San, there was indeed a young genius player who shocked the entire soul fighting arena with the cultivation of the Soul Emperor as soon as he appeared. The boy's name was also Tang Ge. Could it be the person in front of me? Bibi Dong frowned slightly, but then snorted. God Tang? In this world, I dare not mention this supreme word. How can a mere child like you be qualified? Maybe you think that you are indeed amazing at such a young age, but in front of me, you are just a bug that can be crushed to death. Say I'm a bug? Standing on the white clouds, Tang Ge condescendingly looked down at this woman who was over 30 years old but still looked like a girl with a peerless face, and couldn't help showing a weird smile. Not to mention, the other party is not only the appearance but also the temperament of the body. It is as if carved out of the same mold as Jin Ringsu. as expected of the mother and daughter. But to say he was a bug would be taking it too far. So even if the other party is the Pope of the Wuhan Palace and Jinring Su's mother, Tang Ge has to bully the other party severely. So under the expectant eyes of others, he looked at the frosty Bibi Dong, and immediately smiled confidently. Your Majesty the Pope, if even I am not worthy to be called a god on this world, then who else is qualified to be called a god? That's why this person always thought that she was already standing on the top of the mountain, but in fact it was just a protruding rock in the well. After the words fell, a surging momentum was instantly released from Tang Ge's body. The moment the martial spirit mountains, rivers and Shiji map appeared, one after another spirit rings rose from his feet. There are 7 soul rings in total, representing the cultivation of the soul sage. Perhaps this kind of strength is nothing to the contra-entitled Douluo present. But the black and red dazzling light emanating from the 7 soul rings made most of the soul masters present gasp and become dumbfounded. Is this young man a monster? How old is he? And he actually has 5 10,000-year spirit rings and 2 10,000-year spirit rings. Especially when Ghost Douluo, who was planning to attack Tang Ge before, saw this scene, he was so frightened that he broke out in a cold sweat. Regardless of the soul power of the opponent's soul sage level, those 2 10-year soul rings alone are enough to crush him. For a moment, Ghost Douluo couldn't help but looked at Zhu Douluo beside him, and said in a trembling voice, Yuguan, thanks for reminding me, otherwise I might die here today. However, how do you know that this young man is very powerful? Originally, Zhu Douluo felt that he and Ghost Douluo were friends who had worked together for many years, so he reminded him. But now he suddenly regretted reminding the other party. Did this guy do it on purpose? Seeing the curiosity revealed on Ghost Douluo's pale face, Zhu Douluo couldn't help snorting immediately, and turned his head away. Ghost Douluo, did I say something wrong? End of this chapter. Chapter 329 Unexpectedly, cannot move. The reason why Bibi Dong and Tang Hao are top-level existences among titled Douluo, and they can suppress a titled Douluo like Dugubo immobilized by just their aura is because they have 10-year level spirit rings. But now, the appearance of Tang Ge directly refreshed all the soul masters' presents perception of genius. Young man, only 15 years old, with a soul sage cultivation. 7 soul rings, 5 10,000-year soul rings, 2 10-year soul rings. How long has this kind of genius not appeared in Douluo Continent, millennium? Or 10,000 years? A terrifying aura emanated from Tang Ge, and the spirit masters of the Wuhan Palace who were clamoring to take Tang Ge down just now were all scared out of their wits. Many soldiers with spears couldn't bear the pressure, and they all collapsed to the ground. They looked at Tang Ge standing on top of the white clouds with his hands behind his back, as if they were looking at a god. Their eyes were full of awe and fear. Ding dong, congratulations to the host, shocked Chunshin, and gained, shock points. Ding dong, congratulations to the host, shocked Thursday, and gained, shock points. Ding dong, congratulations to the dormitory, you shocked Chrysanthemum Douluo and gained, shock points. Ding dong, congratulations to the host, you shocked Ghost Douluo and gained, shock points. Ding dong, congratulations to the host, you shocked Tang Hao and gained, shock points. Ding dong, congratulations to the host, you shocked Bibi Dong, and gained, shock points. But at this moment, for Tang Ge, it was the harvest season. But after a while, his shock value soared again. Among them, Tang Hao, the titled Douluo, even broke his own record, reaching another 7,000 points. When Tang Ge couldn't help but look sideways, there was still a deep shock on the other side's face. Apparently, this titled Douluo didn't expect that the boy who was about the same size as his child now possessed 2 10-year soul rings. Where did the 2 10-year soul rings come from, to sacrifice themselves so generously? If Tang Ge knew Tang Hao's thoughts, he would definitely scoff. Tang Ge, a man with a system, does he need to sacrifice a soul beast to obtain a soul ring? Only weak chickens need it. So after just glancing at Tang Hao, Tang Ge stopped paying attention, and turned his attention back to Bibi Dong below. He looked at the high and mighty Pope of the Wuhan Hall. Although the other side tried his best to maintain calm, that tall figure was still trembling slightly. 2 10-year soul rings are enough to scare this beautiful woman. Tang Ge couldn't help laughing. How about it, now you understand the real gap between me and you. His Majesty the Pope, let Xiao Wu go. There is no need to make unnecessary sacrifices. Let go of Xiao Wu. Even though Bibi Dong did feel unprecedented pressure at this moment, she never expected that such a young boy would have such a terrifying soul ring configuration. But if she really does what the other party said, where should she put the face of the Pope of the Wuhan Palace? At that time, how should the people of the world treat her, the Pope? Ridicule, pity? Still poor? The more she thought about it, the more ugly Bibi Dong's face became, and the aura on her body was uncontrollably released continuously. Facing this kind of imposing oppression, Xiao Wu, who had just had the strength of the soul sect, couldn't withstand it, but in an instant, a painful expression appeared on her pale little face. Little dance, little miss dance. Seeing this, Tang San and Daming, who turned into a dragon, couldn't help but said anxiously. Tang Ge sighed even more. Oh, do you have to force me to pluck the wool from your body again? Immediately after he waved his hand, including him, Bibi Dong, who was about to go all out, and Xiao Wu next to him suddenly disappeared in place. So much so that when everyone came back to their senses, they thought that everyone on their own was in danger. Avenge His Majesty the Pope, I don't know who roared, and the battle that was about to calm down suddenly broke out completely. The Wuhandian side, led by Zhu Douluo and Ghost Douluo, launched an attack on Tang Hao and Daming first. Because Ning Fengzi was concerned about the relationship between the Zhuangmin and Wuhandian, he didn't make a move, but let Jian Douluo protect Rongrong and her classmates. But Flender, Yuzaya Gang, and Liu Erlong, the three golden triangles, didn't have any scruples, and directly activated the Trinity Fusion technique to join the battle. Poison Douluo Dugubo is also among them. So even though the original plot has changed slightly because of Tang Ge's arrival, but the glorious Papal Palace still failed to escape its fate, and suffered huge damage in the ensuing war. Even the angel statue, which symbolized the divine power of the Wuhan Temple, was impacted by the aftermath, and cracks appeared. It wasn't until the appearance of one person that the intensified melee was temporarily terminated. In a snowfield that can't be seen at a glance, accompanied by the howling cold wind, suddenly there is a breath of spatial fluctuations. Immediately afterwards, three figures appeared here out of thin air. It was Tang Ge, Bibi Dong, and Xiao Wu. And before Bibi Dong could react, Xiao Wu next to her suddenly disappeared, and when she reappeared, she was already standing beside Tang Ge. Brother Tang, where's this place? Looking at the unfamiliar surroundings, Xiao Wu's pale face revealed a hint of confusion. Here, hearing Xiao Wu's question, Tang Ge's voice paused for a moment, and then he burst out laughing. It's my world, Brother Tang's world? Before Xiao Wu could understand what it meant, she heard the dong 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 sound of the earth shaking. In the distance, it seemed that there was a gust of wind, and countless snow and ice were lifted up, forming a huge snow curtain, which was approaching at a high speed. Maybe Xiao Wu just thought it was a huge snowstorm caused by nature. But Bibi Dong could clearly feel the powerful and berserk aura that filled the snow curtain that stretched from the sky to the ground. Among them, there are 4 auras that even she is dignified by. If it's just breath, that's all. But as the snow curtain advanced, Bibi Dong finally saw the situation in the snow curtain clearly. Inside, there were more than 100 soul beasts whose strength was over 10,000 years old. The 4 leading spirit beasts even surpassed the 10-year level. This caused Bibi Dong's complexion to change drastically. How can it be? What the hell is this place? How could there be so many soul beasts with high soul age? She no longer cared about catching Xiao Wu, who suddenly escaped from her control, and was about to turn around and flee from this place. But at the moment Bibi Dong raised his foot, golden chains suddenly appeared in the whole world. These chains were intertwined continuously, forming a net of heaven and earth, which directly enveloped her. In the net of heaven and earth, Bibi Dong, who had always been aloof, finally felt a breath of death. She was horrified to find that she couldn't move. End of this chapter. Chapter 330 Compromise. Dozens of meters away, Tang Ge, who was protecting Xiao Wu, saw Bibi Dong, who was the Pope of the Wuhan Palace, finally showed a panic expression that had never been seen before, and felt inexplicably happy. She would have been afraid too. For a moment, Tang Ge suddenly chuckled and spoke. Don't worry, even for Zuir's sake, I won't kill you. Share, who is it? When Bibi Dong, who was imprisoned in place and unable to move, heard Tang Ge's words, her eyes could not help revealing a look of surprise. But she didn't have time to think about it. Seeing the snow curtain getting closer and closer, she could only keep struggling, trying to break free from the invisible confinement. But it is a pity that, under the mighty power of heaven and earth, Personal power is nothing. So before Bibi Dong could break free, the snow curtain had already been pushed more than 100 meters away. As the wind and snow stopped, all the hundreds of soul beasts inside were revealed immediately. These soul beasts were collected by Tang Ge from the extreme north, and all of them were above 10,000 years old. And most of them are ice bears and Titan snow demons. The leaders are the Ice Emperor, Snow Emperor, Titan Snow Demon King and Ice Bear King. As soon as he appeared, Bingdi glanced around, and immediately saw two new faces here. Immediately she said coldly, Tang Ge, who do you want us to kill? Kill her. In the direction pointed by the sharp scorpion tail of the Ice Empress, it was Bibi Dong who was imprisoned in place. And following its opening, the Snow Empress and the Titan Snow Demon King all set their eyes on Bibi Dong, their eyes filled with murderous intent. It was all because of this woman that they had to stop their cultivation and came here in a waste of time. As for the hundreds of thousands of year spirit beasts that followed, they let out deafening roars. Roar, roar, roar. Streams of strong and fierce ore continuously rushed towards Bibi Dong, making her delicate body start to shake. Although Xiao Wu was not within the range of the imposing manner, she was still quite frightened. She tugged on Tang Ge's sleeve and said tremblingly, Tang, brother Tang, how come there are so many soul beasts, and there are still 10-year level soul beasts? You just need to know that they all listen to me. Facing Xiao Wu's question, Tang Ge smiled lightly. Immediately, he looked at Bibi Dong, who was more than 10 meters away. How about it? Do you still feel that I am not a god? HMPH, I admit that I have underestimated you, but do you really think I don't know what a god is? Facing Tang Ge's complacent expression, even Bibi Dong, who is usually cold and noble, couldn't help gnashing her teeth in anger. After sweeping her eyes over the 4 10-year-old soul beasts and more than 100,000-year-old soul beasts behind him, she simply closed her eyes. Forget it. Stop talking nonsense. Since I'm in your hands, kill me if you want, don't humiliate me, yo. Zuir's mother is quite arrogant. Seeing this, Tang Ge raised his eyebrows. Immediately after he waved his hand, more than 100 soul beasts gathered just now were instantly driven away by him. In the end, only Zhu Di, a soul beast over 10 years old with a beautiful human face, remained. Accompanied by the other party's unwillingness, Tang Ge's face returned to calm. He first withdrew the restraining power that imprisoned Bibi Dong, and then said calmly, Don't worry. I won't kill you if I say so, I will never kill you. But you've also seen that girl Xiao Wu called me brother Tang. I can't just let you take her away and turn her into a soul ring, can I? Hearing Tang Ge's words, Xiao Wu's eyes were filled with gratitude. She knew that if it wasn't for Tang Ge's appearance this time, she might have fallen into the hands of the woman opposite. At this time, Bibi Dong also slowly calmed down. Although she was very dissatisfied with her current situation, she had to admit that the young man named Tang Ge in front of her was indeed the strongest soul master she had ever seen. Maybe the other party's realm is still in the realm of Soul Sage, but whether it is the real strength or power it has shown, the Hall of Wuhan cannot be underestimated. Even more serious. If the opponent uses special means to put all the spirit beasts on the snowfield into Wuhan City, the entire Wuhan City will be hit by a devastating blow. Under such a threat, even if there is no confinement around her, Bibi Dong can only let go of her haughty posture. She looked at Tang Ge deeply, and said, Tell me, what do you want me to do? That's right. There's no good in killing people. Since His Excellency the Pope is so magnanimous and considerate, I'm not going to say it politely. First of all, you killed Xiao Wu's mother, so you can't kill them all, right? From now on, you are not allowed to trouble Xiao Wu, including all the soul masters in your spirit hall. Secondly, the teachers of Shrek Academy and my classmates like Tang San and Daimyo Bei, your spirit hall can't send people to chase and kill them. The last point is that the two big guys in the core area of the Star Dao Forest are now my younger brothers. If you want to obtain a 10-year soul ring, you should look elsewhere. Soon, Tang Ge expressed his request. There are 3 in total, among which the first and third almost completely cut off Bibi Dong's chance of obtaining a 10-year spirit ring. Unless the opponent goes to the ocean area with more and more terrifying soul beasts. But these 2 items are still within Bibi Dong's acceptance range. It's just that Tang Ge's second request made her look ugly, and she couldn't help but said, if it's according to what you said, it's possible that your classmates took the initiative to trouble me, and I can only stand there passively beaten. That's not true. If they take the initiative to trouble you, even if you kill them, I won't take care of them. Tang Ge shook his head and said. Although he came forward this time, he has not yet reached the point where he can take care of everything. If someone really wants to die by himself, then he will die. Regarding this, Bibi Dong, who had an ugly complexion, felt better, and nodded after thinking for a while. Okay, I agree to everything you just mentioned. Now, can I send me back, Brother Tang? Seeing this, Xiao Wu couldn't help being anxious, wanting to say something. But Tang Ge suddenly interrupted her, looked at her with a gentle smile and said, Xiao Wu, you shouldn't tell others what you saw here, right? I won't. Xiao Wu seemed to sense something from Tang Ge's eyes, her heart trembled, and she shook her head hastily. And at the moment when she shook her head, she found that the surrounding scene suddenly changed. With the disappearance of the white snowfield, she fell into a brief darkness in front of her eyes. As for Zhu Di, who had just been used up and was thrown on the spot without saying a word, when he saw this scene, he stomped his feet angrily. This hateful human. Immediately, she soared into the sky and flew towards the direction of Ice and Snow City. Not a moment. There was a shrill howling sound that rang out over the snowfield for a while. End of this chapter. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 331. What did he do to her? Compared with before, the spirit hall at this time was obviously damaged after a great battle, and many places were shattered and collapsed. Even the angel statue had a broken wing, and its majesty was gone. If it weren't for the sudden appearance of one person, who turned the tide and blocked Duming and Tang Hao alone, the battle that was originally unfavorable to the spirit hall would gradually fall into balance. The entire Wuhandian might cease to exist. Fortunately, the battle didn't last too long. Following a burst of space fluctuations, three figures appeared very abruptly. They were Tang Ge, Xiao Wu and Bibi Dong. But after coming out of the world of mountains and rivers, Bibi Dong, who was originally in a bad mood, saw the scene in front of her, and her beautiful face suddenly became extremely ugly. She couldn't help but yelled angrily. Except for the people in Wuhan Palace, all irrelevant people get out of Wuhan City immediately, and leave quickly with your 10-year-old spirit beasts. Get as far away as possible, and it's best never to let me see you again. This angry shout contained Bibi Dong's tidal Douluo level soul power, and as soon as he opened his mouth, waves of sound waves rolled and swept all directions. The two parties who were fighting were frightened instantly, stopped like a conditioned reflex, and quickly separated and retreated. When they looked in the direction of the angry shout, they realized that the three Tang Ge who had disappeared before had appeared here again. Among them, Chrysanthemum Douluo and Ghost Douluo of Wuhan Palace couldn't help being extremely surprised when they saw that there was their Pope among them, and that they were in peace. His Majesty the Pope, Your Majesty the Pope, it is really great that you are fine. As for Daming, Tang Hao, and Poison Douluo, when they saw Xiao Wu who also appeared, they realized that this girl was not in Bibi Dong's hands, and they instinctively wanted to rush over to save her. When Bibi Dong saw this, she was so angry that she didn't care about her image as the Pope, and cursed again. Didn't you understand what I said? This seat let her go, so you take her and other irrelevant people and leave Wuhan City immediately. This. Seeing Bibi Dong, a woman who was venting as if her aunt had come, Daming and Tang Hao couldn't help being puzzled, and turned their eyes to Tang Ge. Tang Ge smiled, and said to Xiao Wu beside him, Go, don't make Xiao San and Mu Bai worry. Xiao Wu nodded heavily, then ran towards Tang San and Mu Bai excitedly with tears in her eyes. And during this period, Bibi Dong, who is the Pope of the Spirit Hall, really didn't stop him, as if nothing happened before. This made Tang Hao, Douluo, Ning Fengzi and others who were still worried at first look stunned. They looked at Tang Ge who was smiling, and then at Bibi Dong who seemed to have been wronged, and suddenly began to think wildly uncontrollably. Tang Ge is a man, handsome and strong. Bibi Dong is a woman. As the Pope of the Wuhan Temple, she has a high status, and she also has a beautiful face. A good figure is not to be missed, and so, during the period when the two disappeared, what did Tang Ge Bibi Dong do to make Bibi Dong willing to give up a 10-year-old soul beast that was almost obtained? Even Yu Zhiagang was unsteady because of his wild thoughts, and he directly broke away from the fusion of the Trinity. The golden holy dragon in the sky disappeared even more, and turned into chubby Luo Sanpao. Zhiagang, what's wrong with you? Looking at Yu Xiaogang, who suddenly released the fusion skill and looked a bit ugly, Flender couldn't help asking. The eyes of Liu Erlong next to him also showed concern. Yu Xiaogang took a deep breath, and after getting rid of the disturbing image in his mind, he forced a smile and shook his head. I'm fine, it's just that my soul power has been consumed a bit too much. Although Liu Erlong and Flender were still somewhat puzzled, they did not continue to ask. At this time, following Bibi Dong's order, although the soul masters of the spirit hall were unwilling, they had no choice but to step back and make a way out. Ning Fengzi immediately asked Sword Douluo to protect Rongrong and her classmates to retreat from here. The three of Flender have returned to the students. Dugubo and Daming, who had regained his middle-aged appearance, were also among them. In the end, only Tang Hao remained at the front. Although he didn't understand why this woman Bibi Dong would suddenly compromise, but he didn't appear this time for revenge. So Tang Hao's eyes fell on Tang Ge, who was still here, and he frowned and asked, "Aren't you going with us, Uncle Tang? You go first, I have other things to deal with while staying here." Tang Ge smiled and shook his head. Regarding this, Tang Hao suddenly discovered that he could no longer see through the kid in front of him who had leaked his ass in front of him. Could it be that all this is because of the mysterious fruit that the other party ate when he was a child? Originally, Tang Hao was skeptical. But in reality, he believed it. Otherwise, how can a child with leg problems become a soul sage with 5 10,000-year spirit rings and 2 10,000-year spirit rings in only 8 years? Even at this moment, Tang Hao still had a deep worry. He felt that sooner or later, he would have a battle with the opponent. Thinking of this, Tang Hao couldn't help but look at Tang Ge with complicated eyes. Take care. After speaking, he turned around and chased after Flender and his party who had just left. From the beginning to the end, no one from Wuhandian made a move to stop him. But when only Tang Ge was left here, their eyes all moved to Tang Ge. No killing intent. No resentment. There are only strong fears, and a trace of worship mixed in the fears. That's right. Tang Ge's ability to become a soul saint with such strength in a weak year is already worthy of their respect and worship. Even the old man standing under the statue of the archangel in the distance, who turned the tide and saved the Wuhan Hall, kept his eyes on Tang Ge from the beginning to the end. His deep eyes are full of appreciation and kindness, as if looking at his own relatives. After Tang Ge noticed it, he couldn't help but turned around to look at the old man, and smiled. "Senior, since you appreciate this junior so much, can you invite this junior to sit in the Pope's palace?" Stop. When Bibi Dong heard it, she refused without even thinking about it. She lost face today on this young man. How could she want to continue to face this stinky face that she wanted to smash? But unfortunately, before Bibi Dong could say the words of refusal, the tall and thin old man also nodded with a smile. Since the kid wants to sit in the Pope's palace, the old man naturally cannot refuse. Bibi Dong, let someone prepare delicious food. This old man should treat this kid with character well. After the words fell, he laughed loudly, turned around and walked towards the Pope's palace. Tang Ge couldn't help making a face at Bibi Dong, and walked up quickly. End of this chapter. Period. Chapter 332. It's almost time to have a baby. For the identity of the tall and thin old man, Bibi Dong is obviously very jealous, or it is a kind of respect for the elders. So even if the other party invited Tang Ge to enter the Pope's palace regardless of her feelings, she could only get angry, but did not continue to stop it. It's just that Bibi Dong's mood became worse and worse. Seeing this, Zhu Daoluo, who was standing by, couldn't help but said cautiously, "Your Majesty, what shall we do next? Didn't you hear the words of the great priest? Go and prepare food." In the end, Bibi Dong found a target to vent, and directly yelled at Zhu Daoluo. After a while, she felt better, then turned around and entered the Pope's palace. Zhu Daoluo and Ghost Daoluo, who stayed in place, looked at each other, with wry smiles on their faces. Why were they so dumb just now? Really self-inflicted. Let's go. What are you still doing? Go prepare food. Or stay here and wait for His Majesty the Pope to trouble us. In the end, Zhu Daoluo urged and left directly. Ghost Daoluo shook his head helplessly, and hurriedly followed. Although the outside of the Pope's basilica was damaged a lot due to the war, the inside was not affected much. The chair that belonged to the Pope was still high above. The tall and thin old man who just came in did not occupy the Pope's chair, but sat on the chair next to him, chatting and laughing with Tang Ge sitting beside him like a grandfather next door. At this time, Tang Ge already knew the identity of the other party. just as he had already guessed when he saw the other party. The opponent is Jin Daoliu, the great enshrined in the Angel Temple of Wuhan Temple, one of the 3 living people who can raise his soul power to level 99 Ultimate Douluo. Similarly, Jin Daoliu is also Jin Ringsu's grandfather. Maybe he already knew about Tang Ge from Jin Ringsu, and seeing Tang Ge's performance with his own eyes today, Jin Daoliu was very kind to this young man when he saw him. Now after some chatting, he is even more satisfied with Tang Ge. In the end, Jin Daoliu held Tang Ge's hand tightly, as if he was afraid that the other party would run away, and opened his mouth full of emotion. Xiao Jie, even though I have lived for more than 100 years and have seen countless geniuses, I never thought that in the world, you can grow up to the present stage at such a young age. Don't look at the old man's current strength has come to an end, and there are only a handful of opponents, but at your age, I'm afraid I'm still playing with mud. Playing with mud? Old man, even if you want to compliment me, you don't have to be so modest. Hearing Jin Daoliu's words, Tang Ge couldn't help but secretly slander. But he said very modestly on the surface, Grandpa Jin is so powerful, how can Xiaoj compare with you? It's just that you are too low-key. Ha 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 ha. What Xiaoj said is right, the old man has indeed not been born for a long time. Faced with Tang Ge's response, Jin Daoliu finally stopped denying it, and burst out laughing happily. He was so excited that he didn't know whether it was unintentional or on purpose. He laughed and said again, Xiaoj, this old man has a granddaughter who is also very talented, and she was born with a full soul power of level, ! It may be fate that you and I met today. How about I betroth my granddaughter to you? When Jin Daoliu said these words, Tang Ge almost burst out laughing. This old man definitely did it on purpose. The other party must already know about the relationship between him and Jin Ringsu, otherwise it would be impossible for the two to start working as matchmakers as soon as they met. But Jin Daoliu still pretended to be stupid, as if I really didn't know anything. Regarding this, Tang Ge didn't want to expose it, and was going to shirk it a few times before pretending to accept it reluctantly. But before he could speak, with a sound of footsteps, a figure suddenly walked in from outside, followed by an angry female voice. I disagree. It turned out that at some point Bibi Dong had finished dealing with the outside affairs and entered the main hall. She obviously also heard the conversation between Jin Daoliu and Tang Ge just now. Her beautiful face was full of anger, and she went straight to Jin Daoliu. Without even looking at Tang Ge, Bibi Dong stared directly at Jin Daoliu, gritted her teeth and said, Zuir is my daughter, and as a mother, I firmly disagree. Yo, it seems that you still think of yourself as Zuir's mother. Hearing Bibi Dong's objection, Jin Daoliu couldn't help but sneer, but it doesn't matter that you're Zuir's mother, I'm still Zuir's grandfather. I have the right to decide about my granddaughter's lifelong affairs, because this young man is very strong. Why don't you even ask Zuir if he agrees? Bibi Dong's eyes were full of disappointment. She admitted that due to some reasons of her own, she had been much harsher and harsher to Jin Ringsu in the past, and even had a lot of indifference. But in her heart, it was a lie that Bibi Dong didn't care about her daughter. Now the other party's grandfather doesn't even ask his granddaughter, but wants to completely entrust his granddaughter's lifelong happiness to a young man who has never been masked. Not to mention the age gap between the two, even the identity of this young man is a big problem. Could it be that the old man's long-term retreat has caused his brain to become confused? Or is it because he has always cared about his son's affairs, so he wants to transfer the resentment in his heart from himself, the instigator, to Zuir? It's just that Bibi Dong is well aware of the old man's domineering character, and knows that the decision the other party has made cannot be opposed by others. So she could only say in a deep voice, after all, this is about Zuir's lifelong event, and she is also working on that matter now. She must wait for her success before making a decision, right? What's more, this boy and Zuir have never met before. Why can't they let them get to know each other first? After finishing speaking, Bibi Dong looked at Tang Ge, who had been ignored all this time, and there was a faint threat in her cold eyes. Young man, what do you think? Hearing Bibi Dong's words, Tang Ge smiled. As if he had thought of some interesting scene, he smiled and said, Your Majesty, to be honest, I have actually known your daughter Jin Ringsu for many years. Not only that, but our relationship is also very good. If you want to describe how good this relationship is, it's that Zuir and I have done everything that should be done between a man and a woman, except for having a baby. Therefore, I believe that even if Zuir heard what Grandpa Jin said just now, she would definitely agree. As soon as these words came out, Bibi Dong with a stern expression seemed to be struck by lightning. And her tall figure immediately stepped back 5 or 6 steps in succession. After she stopped, she felt as if she was going to be out of breath, so she had to cover her heart with her hands and take deep breaths continuously. As for Jin Daoliu, who was sitting firmly on the chair at the side, he jumped from the chair and stood up all of a sudden. He couldn't help but widen his eyes, looking at the smiling Tang Ge in disbelief. Xiao Jie, what did you just say? That you and Zuir are short of having a baby? End of this chapter. Chapter 333 Uncle Tang, you should work hard. Seeing the two people's reaction so violently, and the system prompt sound in his mind, Tang Ge was secretly surprised. He didn't expect to get wool in this way. Then he showed a smile on his face, and said, it's just a trivial matter, Grandpa Jin doesn't have to react so violently, anyway, sooner or later we will be one family. Hearing Tang Ge's words, Jin Daoliu, who had calmed down a little, had nothing to say. It was the first time he had seen such a thick-skinned brat. After claiming his granddaughter's body without saying a word, he still said such a thing so casually. If it were someone else, Jin Daoliu would have slapped him long ago. Although he agreed that Zuir and Tang Ge should be in a relationship, and even hoped that the two could become a family, he didn't want them to get things done so quickly. It's like you can do what I tell you to do, and you can't do what I don't let you do. Now someone said to his face what he hadn't promised to do. Jin Daoliu was naturally not feeling well, and couldn't help but secretly annoyed. This girl Zuir is really too presumptuous. For a while, when he looked at Tang Ge again, his eyes became a little unkind. Stinky boy, you really didn't lie to me, Grandpa Jin. Why would I lie to you about this kind of thing? But don't think too much about it, I'm sure I won't give up on Zuir all the time. Seemingly aware of Jin Daoliu's thoughts, Tang Ge couldn't help saying seriously. Jin Daoliu knew that if this kind of thing really happened, no matter how much he struggled, it would be of no avail. Coupled with Tang Ge's guarantee, he could only snort in dissatisfaction in the end. I hope you boy will do what he says. As for Bibi Dong, who is not far away, seeing Jin Dao lingering and being able to accept such things so quickly, the whole person seemed to have received a second blow. She couldn't stand any more, and fell down on the Pope's chair with a thud. Her face looked extremely pale. Forget it, my daughter has grown up and her wings are hardened. I really can't control her anymore. Since she doesn't care about herself, why should I worry about it? You all go out, I want to stay here for a while. They're starting to drive people away. I haven't eaten yet. Anyway, you will be my mother-in-law in the future. Hearing Bibi Dong's powerless words, Tang Ge couldn't help curling his lips, feeling very dissatisfied. But he didn't really continue to stay with a cheeky face. After saying goodbye to Jin Daoliu, he got up and left the spirit hall, chasing in the direction Tang San and the others left before. People leave. Only Jin Daoliu and Bibi Dong were left in the Pope's palace. Looking at Bibi Dong, who was devastated by the blow, Jin Daoliu frowned and said, tell me about what happened after your aunt Tang Ge disappeared suddenly. You are so optimistic about that kid, even sending your own granddaughter away. I thought you knew what happened. Facing Jin Daoliu's inquiry, Bibi Dong couldn't help but sneer. Jin Daoliu said lightly, at the age of 14, he is already a soul sage with 5 black and 2 red soul rings, a total of 7 soul rings. I don't think he is not worthy of Zuir. Maybe you don't know, but I know how much he has helped Zuir. If not, do you think I would let Zuir start accepting the inheritance now? And if Tang Ge and Zuir were together, he would naturally be a member of Wuhandian. I know what you want to do. Don't you think that if you win over Tang Ge, once he fully grows up, it will be more useful than those titled Douluo under you? Having said these words, Bibi Dong couldn't help but see the scene on that mysterious snowfield again in her mind. She admitted that what the old man said was right. If he could win Tang Ge over, he would be far stronger than other titled Douluo in Wuhandian. Even once this young man grows up, it is not that there is no chance to aspire to that supreme realm. But if because of this, he let the Pope of his majestic Wuhan temple compromise and bow his head to a 14-year-old boy, what is the majesty of his Pope? What is the face? Bibi Dong suddenly felt very tired, and when she thought of the man who had walked into her heart but joined forces with outsiders to deal with her when she was outside the hall, her pale face suddenly became extremely cold. Men are nothing, Jin Daoliu, being scolded for no reason, Jin Daoliu didn't bother to continue asking. He glanced at Bibi Dong, who had an extremely cold face, left a sentence of think about it yourself, then got up and left the Pope's palace. Leaving aside the conversation between Bibi Dong and Jin Daoliu, Tang Ge was not stopped after leaving the Pope's palace, and walked out of Wuhan City easily. And relying on heaven listening earth vision, he quickly found Tang San and his party who came out one step earlier. But because they were afraid of being chased and killed by the soul masters of the Wuhan Hall, Ning Fengzi and Jian Daoluo had forcibly brought Ning Rongrong, who wanted to stay, back to the 7 treasure glazed tile school. And Zhu Ziuqing, Dai Mu Bei, Oscar and the others also followed Du Yubo and Flender back to Shrek Academy one step ahead. In the end, only Tang San, Tang Hao, Daming and Xiao Wu were left in a forest tens of miles away from Wuhan City. When Tang Ge arrived, the eyes of the 4 people immediately fell on him. Tang San even walked up to Tang Ge, and said gratefully, Tang Ge, thanks to your appearance this time, otherwise Xiao Wu might end up in the hands of the Spirit Hall. Thank you, Brother Tang. Xiao Wu followed suit. Daming and Tang Hao looked at each other, feeling inexplicably uncomfortable. After all, one of the 2 of them was transformed from a soul beast over 10 years old, and the other was an existence that had been famous for a long time and was feared by countless titled Daoluo in the world of soul masters. If any one of the 2 came out at random, stomping their feet could cause a huge commotion. But now Daming and Tang Hao discovered that they could not even compare to a 14-year-old boy, and they finally left Wuhan City safely by relying on each other. This is really ridiculous. However, Daming had seen Tang Ge's horror before, and quickly adjusted his mentality, so he didn't feel that there was anything to be ashamed of. But Tang Hao grew up watching Tang Ge. Now the child in his eyes not only leaves his son far away, but even he is no longer the opponent of the opponent. How does this make him feel balanced? Finally, Tang Hao couldn't help but suddenly said, Tang Ge, can you come with me? After speaking, he turned around and walked deep into the woods. Tang Ge smiled lightly, and followed him. They didn't stop until they had walked more than 100 meters away. Looking at Tang Ge again, Tang Hao's eyes were complicated, and he said with great emotion, I really didn't expect that after a few years of absence, you have grown to the point where even Uncle Tang can't see through. It's just that Uncle Tang is very curious, does the fruit you took when you were 6 years old really exist? This has always been a doubt in his heart. Hearing Tang Hao's question, Tang Ge wanted to laugh, but he didn't expect this guy to still be brooding over the Guozi matter, and he hasn't forgotten it until now. But he did not veer, but nodded. Of course it's true, and after taking that fruit, my strength not only improved by leaps and bounds, but I also discovered that the world is far bigger than we thought. So Uncle Tang, you should also work hard. Otherwise, one day when you and I confront each other, if you can't beat me, you will be pushed to the ground and ravaged severely by me. Having said that, Tang Ge couldn't help showing a smile on his face. End of this chapter. Chapter 334 Preparations before traveling again. Although Tang Ge's tone was calm when he said these words, Tang Hao's heart trembled slightly after hearing this, and he suddenly felt heavy. Because he has a feeling that what the other party says is against him is not a child's play, but such a thing will really happen one day. And he had to admit it. If he hadn't made any progress by that time, he might really be pushed to the ground by the other party and ravaged severely. But the gap of a 10-year spirit ring cannot be easily bridged. Not to mention, the current Tang Ge is only in the realm of Soul Sage, and the 2 realms behind him can add 2 more soul rings. If these 2 soul rings are also 10 years old, Tang Hao didn't dare to think any further. This growing gap even made him, the titled Daoluo who had been in the world of soul masters for many years, start to feel hopeless. In the end, Tang Hao could only take a deep breath to suppress the worries in his heart, and looked at the smiling Tang Ge, and nodded seriously. Don't worry, Uncle Tang has already remembered what you said. Then, does Uncle Tang have anything else to ask? Tang Ge continued to smile. After listening to Tang Hao, although he understood that he still had many questions in his mind, such as the origin of Tang Ge's 10-year-old soul ring, and the relationship between the transformed soul beast named Daming and Tang Ge. But he knew that this was the other party's secret, and he shouldn't keep asking. So Tang Hao could only shake his head. No, let's go back. Immediately, he and Tang Ge left here and walked in the direction they had just come. Next, Tang Ge directly asked Daming to take Xiao Wu back to the Star Forest to practice. Although Xiao Wu was very reluctant to part with Tang San, but thinking of this experience, she could only choose to agree. Daming was very happy about this. Finally, he and Erming could stay with Miss Xiao Wu again. As for Tang San, this time he was also deeply aware of his lack of strength, and he didn't even have the ability to protect Xiao Wu in a dangerous moment. So facing Tang Ge's request, he didn't have any thoughts of refuting, but his mood was extremely depressed. It wasn't until Tang Ge and Daming left with Xiao Wu that Tang San suddenly looked up at his father, who was still staying here with him. "Dad, am I useless?" Seeing his son's shocked appearance, Tang Hao really wanted to say, "In fact, your father and I are in the same mood as you right now." But he couldn't say that. He could only reach out and touch the other person's head, and sighed. "Little San, there are always one or two people in this world whose talents far surpass those of geniuses. Such people cannot be treated with common sense, and Tang Ge is one of them. So compared to your peers, you are already very good, little San. Your performance in the Soul Master competition this time is proof. Don't belittle yourself." And Tang Ge did the right thing. The Wuhan Palace already knew that Xiao Wu was a soul beast, and the best place for her to go now was the Star Dao Forest. There, she will be safer than staying by your side, and all you have to do is to improve your strength as soon as possible. Hearing his father's words, Tang San nodded seriously. "Well, Dad, I understand. So where do we go next? How can I improve my strength as soon as possible?" His eyes were full of anticipation, and he had never wanted to improve his strength as urgently as he did now. Maybe his father, who is a titled Douluo, could help him. Seeing this, Tang Hao couldn't help showing a gratified smile on Vicissitude's face. He patted his son on the shoulder, turned around and walked several miles away. "Come with me, I will give you special training in the next time, and then I will take you to a special place. There will be the place where you really grow up." A place to really grow up? Hearing his father's words, Tang San couldn't help clenching his fists. On the way back to the starred out Great Forest, because of what happened before, Xiao Wu, who was being carried by Daming, seemed to be depressed all the time. Although Tang Ge, who came over, saw it, he didn't persuade him. The reason why he wanted to go to the Star Dao Forest again this time was mainly because he planned to include Erming, a soul beast that had transformed into golden-eyed stone ape, into the map of Shanxiji. Because the Continental Advanced Soul Master Academy competition has ended, and Tang Ge made a fuss in Wuhan City before, there will be no major events in the next short time. So Tang Ge plans to take advantage of this free time to go to other worlds. It just so happened that he had drawn the timelines of Gate of the Heavens and Fighting the Sky, and he planned to set off immediately after Rongrong, Zhu's Huqing and Lin Yuchen settled down. With the assistance of many soul beasts in the world of mountains and rivers, Tang Ge believes that this time he can make a new breakthrough in the world of fighting against the sky. As for the three girls Rongrong, it is more suitable for them to practice in the world of Douluo Continent. But before that, Tang Ge had to take some safety measures. So after he accompanied Daming to send Xiao Wu back to the core area of the starred out Great Forest, he directly took Erming, who was unwilling to leave, into the world of mountains and rivers Snort. This Titan giant ape brought a beast ring he gave it, and wanted to forget that the master stayed to play with a little girl? Impossible. But after finishing all this, Tang Ge did not leave in a hurry, but came to the small island in the middle of the lake where Daming lived again. Sitting cross-legged on the ground, he checked his current shock value 13,200 points. It's already more than, looking at the value in the column of his shock value at the moment, Tang Ge was both surprised and pleasantly surprised. You must know that when he was in the extreme north a few days ago, in order to stabilize the world of mountains and rivers, he just used up all the shock points of more than 30. Unexpectedly, this time, just harvesting outside the Pope's palace, the shock value broke through the, mark again. Sure enough, there's nothing wrong with it, it is still very beneficial. In this case, let's do another 10 consecutive draws. Thinking of this, Tang Ge did not hesitate, and directly started the lottery draw of the heavens. The heavenly roulette emerged from the void, and began to spin rapidly, as if connecting the heavens and myriad worlds, and countless treasures were randomly drawn. After a while, bursts of system prompts sounded in Tang Ge's mind one after another. Ding dong, congratulations to the host, you have successfully extracted, high-grade spirit stones 4 times in a row. Ding dong, congratulations to the host, successfully extracted, top-quality spirit stones. Ding dong, congratulations to the host, you have successfully extracted, caddies. Ding dong, congratulations to the host, you have successfully extracted 10 fairy crystals. Ding dong, congratulations to the host, Successfully extracted a caddy of water of life. Ding dong. Congratulations to the host. You have successfully extracted the formation, the 5-element reversal formation. Ding dong. Congratulations to the host. You have successfully extracted the formation, the spirit gathering formation. All 10 treasures were extracted and turned into golden light and directly entered the system space. But Tang Ge was stunned. What happened? How did you get so many training resources this time? It seems that there is something bad about it. End of this chapter. Chapter 335 Fadiao, congratulations. Regarding the results of the 10 consecutive lottery draws, Tang Ge was really caught off guard. Although he said that he would always accept cultivation resources, he didn't want 7 out of 10 lottery draws to be occupied by cultivation resources. And most of them are spirit stones. How? The system feels that I have an extra world of mountains and rivers that consumes a lot of resources, so it makes this for me? After recovering, Tang Ge sighed softly when he saw that he had more than 3 shock points left. Forget it. Anyway, I don't lack supernatural powers and magic weapons at the moment, and it's not a bad thing to draw more cultivation resources. Besides the Spirit Stone and Origin Stone, the Water of Life is of great help to Yujin, and the 2 formations are not useless. As if thinking of something, a smile finally appeared on his slightly helpless face. Immediately, Tang Ge didn't continue the lottery draw, but after learning the 2 newly drawn formations, said goodbye to Da Ming and Xiao Wu, and left the Star Dao Forest directly. After that, he went back to the Holy Soul Village again, and gave the last remaining Foundation Establishment pill to Grandpa Jack, which made Grandpa Jack's body improve again. And considering the possibility that Grandpa Jack might rejuvenate for a second time, Tang Ge also kept the pair of soul tool gloves that originally came from Grandpa Jack. This thing is basically of no help to him, it is better to pass it on to Grandpa's descendants. It's just that Tang Ge didn't know that after he left, the old Jack who stood at the entrance of the village and watched him leave suddenly let out a sigh. I really didn't expect that Jack, was so lucky to pick up such a filial child in my life. Could it be the blessings accumulated in my previous life? It's a pity that even though most of this weathered body has recovered, it still missed the best time, and it was impossible to help the child. Forget it, children and grandchildren have their own blessings, I hope this child can go on so smoothly. After the voice fell, old Jack returned to Holy Soul Village with his hands behind his back. The sun was setting, and the orange light was falling down. Faintly visible behind him, a phantom appeared, but it disappeared quickly. Because of the darkness, Tang Ge, who left Saint Soul Village, did not return to Shrek Academy in a hurry, but stayed in Soto City overnight. Ding Dang, the beauty whom he hadn't seen for a long time that night, enjoyed his service all night, and couldn't get out of bed until noon the next day. But for Tang Ge's face, the supervisor of Suachuo Daohun Field would not blame Ding Dang for not coming to work. And with the thousands of gold soul coins left by Tang Ge, Ding Dong will not be hungry even if he is not working. It's just that when she woke up and looked at the empty place beside her, her beautiful eyes were full of resentment. Is Ding Dong not worth your company for a few more days? If Tang Ge could hear it, he would definitely nod without hesitation. That's right. Not even one more day. But at this moment, he has already left Soto City, soaring into the sky and turning into an afterimage, flying towards the direction of Heaven Dao Empire's Heaven Dao City. The next day, in the morning, Daimyo Bei and Oscar, who had already finished the Continental Advanced Soul Master Academy tournament and returned smoothly, were summoned by Flender to the woods behind the academy after they had breakfast. It's just that Tang San didn't come back because of Xiao Wu's incident, so everyone was very depressed. Flender didn't say anything to comfort him. After all, this kind of thing is what these children need to go through. After a lot of experience, the mind will mature and understand that a person's life cannot always be smooth, and separation is just the norm. And he summoned these children today just for their respective future development. Thinking of this, Flender took a deep breath and spoke. Okay, with Tang Ge here, you don't have to worry about the safety of Xiao Wu and Tang San. They probably won't go back to the academy in the future. So considering that the Soul Master competition is over, and you won't learn much if you stay in the academy, I plan to let you graduate early. After all, those who stay in the academy are only students. Only when you leave the academy can you learn something that is really useful to you. If there is nothing else tonight, I will hold a graduation banquet for you in the college. I hope you can cherish this last day of reunion of classmates. After speaking, Flender turned around and left. He doesn't need to be involved in the next matter, let these children handle everything by themselves. I hope they can adjust their mentality. As soon as Flender left, Oscar, who stayed here, suddenly burst into tears. Woo! I finally graduated, and I can finally have a girlfriend in an open and above-board manner, but why am I so sad? Fatty, am I sick? Woo 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 woo. Fatty Ma Hongjin was originally trying to endure the pain in his heart, but after being stimulated by Oscar, he burst into uncontrollable tears. While crying, he couldn't help kicking Oscar angrily. That's right. You are sick, and it's not serious, how dare you kick me? Oscar, who was crying, suddenly widened his eyes, staring at Ma Hongjin with red eyes. Ma Hongjin wiped the tears off his face with his hand, and roared loudly. What's wrong with just kicking you? I'm going to beat you again. It's you who caused me to cry so much? How much water do I have to drink to make up for it? Then, before Oscar could react, he rushed forward and hugged the opponent, rolled to the ground and began to tear continuously. Unfortunately, neither of them exerted much force, but one cried louder than the other. So that the two daughters Lin Yuchen and Zhu Zhuqing, who were also crying in a low mood, burst into laughter after seeing this scene. Dai Mubei even shook his head and said with emotion, I really don't know if I will have the chance to see these two live treasures again after graduation. Certainly possible. Lin Yuchen bit her thin lips lightly, and said in a heavy voice. Zhu Zhuqing didn't say anything, but her beautiful eyes were full of firmness. For a moment the clearing in the woods was filled with the sorrow of parting. And Ma Hongjin and Oscar were like children who hadn't grown up, hugging each other and tearing at each other, while crying unceasingly. Suddenly, there was a sound of breaking through the air. Immediately afterwards, a familiar chuckle came from outside the woods. Tisk tisk tisk. I really didn't expect to know each other for such a long time. On the eve of graduation, Xiao Ao and Fatty finally got together. Xiao Ao, Fatty, congratulations. It seems that in addition to the graduation banquet tonight, there will be a separate table for these two newcomers. What a double blessing. It's Tang Ge. Tang Ge is back. Hearing this sudden familiar chuckle, Lin Yuchen and Zhu Zhuqing, who were intoxicated in the sadness of parting, were startled for a moment, and then surprise and excitement appeared on their pretty faces. When they raised their heads and looked in the direction of the sound, a tall and straight figure appeared in the sky above the open space in the blink of an eye from far to near. End of this chapter. Chapter 336 Little Warmth Before Parting. Tang Ge, you are finally back. I thought I would never see you again. When seeing Tang Ge, who came suddenly, Dai Mubei, who came back to his senses, was also relieved, and said. Tang Ge smiled and said, how could I miss such an important thing as the graduation banquet? Immediately, he fell directly from mid-air, and came in front of Zhu Zhuqing and Lin Yuchen. Perhaps it was because they were about to graduate, and the two girls couldn't help but rush forward when they saw Tang Ge, no matter how much they cared about hiding their feelings for Tang Ge. Tang, brother Tang, I miss you so much. I miss Xiao Wu so much. You said that we are all classmates. Why can't we always be together and practice happily like before? Why? Woo 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 woo. Zhuqing doesn't want to be separated from you. Can you always take me with you? Tang Ge opened his hands, one left and one right, and held Lin Yuchen and Zhu Zhuqing, who were rushing towards him, in his arms. Hearing the crying of the two daughters, he didn't speak, but just hugged them like this, comforting their weak hearts that were sad because they were going to be separated after graduation with his broad and warm chest. Not far away, Dai Mubei looked extremely envious. Although he used to hug him from left to right, none of those girls really liked him. They were all greedy for his handsome appearance and powerful strength. And if it wasn't for Tang Ge's appearance, he really wanted to be with Zhu Zhuqing and find a girl who could share his heart with him. Of course now, Dai Mubei also looked away. Everyone has their own right to pursue happiness, and we cannot force others because of our own selfishness. So he planned to return to the Star Luo Empire as soon as he graduated, and proposed to his father to dissolve the engagement between himself and Zhu Zhuqing. Zhu Zhuqing belonged to Tang Ge, and Dai Mubei's only goal now is to win the crown prince of the Star Luo Empire, and then use Tang Ge as his goal to constantly pursue his own peak of strength. Oscar and Ma Hongjin, who were lying on the ground not far away and tearing at each other, finally stopped crying because of Tang Ge's arrival. Especially when he heard Tang Ge's words. Xiao Ao and Xiao Pang finally got together. The two of them trembled in fright, and kicked each other directly. After they separated, Ma Hongjin still didn't forget to say angrily, Oscar, why are you hugging me? Let me tell you, I am the man you will never get in your life. You fat man, beat me up again. It was you who hugged me first. Oscar blushed with anger. Then he was afraid that Tang Ge was really talking nonsense at the graduation banquet, so he quickly turned his head to look at Tang Ge, who was hugging Zhu Ziyuqing and Lin Yujin, anxious to explain. Boss Tang, don't listen to fat people talking nonsense. Even if I want to like girls with long legs and thin waists, why would I like his type? How about asking Brother Dai to take us to the famous beauty service area in Xiandao City tonight, and I will prove in front of you, Boss Tang, that there is nothing wrong with my sexual orientation. As a result, as soon as Tang Ge said this, Dai Mubei became anxious immediately before Tang Ge said anything. He glared fiercely at Oscar, clenched his fist and said, Zioao, shut up. What is the famous beauty service area in Xiandao City? How could I go back to that kind of place? Dai Mubei, I'm a promising young man now. I have been concentrating on cultivation, and I will never do such absurd things. This, isn't it right? Second Brother Dai, I remember the period of revision after the promotion match, didn't we just go there? Otherwise, think again? Oscar reminded with great confusion. But Dai Mubei immediately collapsed after hearing this. Could it be that this little Ao had a grudge against him, and felt that there was no hope of revenge after graduation, so he took this opportunity to slander his personality? So angry. Why didn't someone beat this guy up like a fat man just now? For a moment, Dai Mubei's teeth were clenched crack bang bang. His ferocious face finally frightened Oscar so much that he realized what he said wrong. Then he saw Tang Ge, who was also squinting at him and smiling. His whole body trembled, and he turned around and ran away without hesitation. Sorry to bother you, you are busy. Oscar, where are you going? Can you slander me, Boss Tang, HMPH? Dai Mubei, have seen through it today. Never have any expectations for a child who can only make sausages. Oscar, stop. Let me enlighten you and see what is in your mind. Watching Oscar run away, Ma Hongjin and Dai Mubei looked at each other, as if they had discussed it in advance. They chased after each other with a loud roar. Soon, only Tang Ge and his two daughters, Zhu Ziyuqing and Lin Yujin, were left here after a while. Only then did Zhu Ziyuqing and Lin Yujin break away from Tang Ge's embrace with blushing faces, and took 2 steps back, as if acquiescing to their relationship with Tang Ge, without saying anything. Tang Ge showed a smile on his face, and said, I'm going to graduate from the academy tonight. It's not easy for everyone to get together, and it's not good to be short of someone. So it just so happens that the time is early. Come with me to the 7 treasure glazed tile school, and bring Rong along. Lin Yujin nodded obediently. And Zhu Ziyuqing also said softly, everything is up to you, Tang Ge. In that case, let's go. Tang Ge smiled and stretched out his hand to embrace the two of them again. As soon as the divine rainbow in the sea of bitterness came out, it enveloped them and soared into the sky, turning into rainbow light and flying towards the distance rapidly. In the academy, Flender, who was walking with Liu Erlong in his arms, seemed to have sensed something, and suddenly stopped. He looked up at the red light that was traveling far away, and couldn't help but sigh, not to mention, sometimes I actually envy this kid Tang Ge. Envious of Tang Ge? Liu Erlong was startled for a moment, then thought of something, and immediately broke free from Flender's arms. She stretched out her hand to grab a piece of flesh on Flender's waist and spun it 360 degrees, and said viciously, What? I can't accompany you alone, and you want to hug left and right. 3 wives and 4 concubines are not enough. It hurts. It hurts. It hurts. Erlong, let go. How dare I have such thoughts? You misunderstood. Flender suddenly cried out in pain. But once a woman gains power, how can she let go easily? So Flender's explanation was not only useless, but it made Liu Erlong feel more and more that this man must have done something wrong to him. And even if you don't do it, it's still in the stage of wanting to do it. If you don't take advantage of such a good opportunity to teach the other party a hard lesson, it will be difficult to find another opportunity in the future. So it didn't take a while. On the square of the college, there was a scene of the former dean of the college preaching to the current dean of the college, but the current dean of the college was honest like a child who made a mistake, and he dared not refute it. But the students who passed by saw this. Instead of laughing, they all showed envious expressions. They couldn't help looking at the female classmate beside them, and there was a look of expectation in their eyes, which directly caused the female classmate to run away blushing. But that's why. The sadness of graduation was quickly diluted, and many warm scenes gradually appeared in the college. End of this chapter. Chapter 337 Tang Ge, you are a scumbag. Late at night. After Dime Yubei and Oscar's graduation banquet ended, the originally lively Shrek Academy restaurant became quiet again. It was still in this small forest, on a small hillside. There are 4 figures sitting there. One of them was Tang Ge, who sat in the middle, next to Lin Yuchen and Ning Rongrong on both sides, while Zhu Zhuking sat opposite Tang Ge without hesitation. Originally, the 4 of us came here after dinner to enjoy the moon. But now no one appreciates it. The 3 girls are all focused on Tang Ge, looking at Tang Ge obsessively in their beautiful eyes. And Tang Ge also unintentionally looked up at the moon. Because the person sitting opposite him was Zhu Zhuking, and the distance of less than half a meter could not allow the night to cover the other's delicate body that was completely beyond his age. Especially that place was shaking and shaking, making Tang Ge dizzy and wishing to have 2 more pairs of eyes. As if aware of this situation, Zhu Zhuking's pretty and cold face blushed first, and then not only did she not retreat, but leaned her body forward again silently. In addition, Ning Rongrong and Lin Yuchen, who were sitting on both sides, were not to be outdone. They both hugged Tang Ge's arm, and leaned their bodies against each other while holding it in their arms. This situation made Tang Ge doubtful. If he took out a big bet on the spot, would the 3 little girls be scrambling to lie on it? But fortunately, Tang Ge still remembered that he had something to arrange, so he didn't make such a ridiculous move. So seeing that a battle for people was about to break out, he hurriedly said, "Okay, after finally sitting together and watching the month, be honest, Tang Ge, the sky is overcast, where does the moon come from?" After Ning Rongrong heard it, she couldn't help curling her lips, and said dissatisfied, "And it's so uncomfortable to sit outside in such a cold day, why don't you go directly to my room?" "No, right here." As a result, as soon as she finished speaking, Lin Yuchen and Zhu Zhuking objected in unison. Seemingly aware of her gaffe, Lin Yuchen immediately blushed and lowered her head. But Zhu Zhuking said with a calm expression, "I mean, Rongrong's room is too small, and it's too crowded for the 4 of us to sit together. So, I think it's better to be here. And we are not ordinary people, just a little wind, it will not affect us." "Rongrong, you don't mind, do you?" "Of course I mind." Hearing Zhu Zhuking's words, Ning Rongrong really wanted to say this, but because Tang Ge was by her side, she could only pretend to be generous and said, "Well, as long as Tang Ge is not cold, I am not cold either, Tang Ge." Then he looked up at the sky, and it turned out that there were dark clouds gathering, blocking the bright moon. This made Tang Ge quite embarrassed. Fortunately, he was thick-skinned enough, and it was dark, so his face didn't change at all, and he spoke directly. "Haven't everyone already graduated?" "Just in time. Rongrong is going back to the 7 Treasures Glazed Tile School, so Yuchen and Zhuking should go to the 7 Treasures Glazed Tile School as well. With the help of Uncle Ning, Sword Douluo, and Bone Douluo there, the 3 of you should not have any problems in your next cultivation." "Well, I listened to Brother Tang." Lin Yuchen had no objection. But Zhu Zhuking seemed to have thought of something, his expression darkened, and he said, "Tang Ge, I need to go back to my family, so I can't go to the 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School for the time being." Tang Ge seemed to have known that the other party would answer like this. Not only did he smile, he reached out and pinched the other person's face, and under the blushing expression of the other person, he spoke again. "Silly girl, don't worry. After Yuchen and Rongrong are settled, I will accompany you to the Star Luo Empire, and then just leave everything to me. With me here, no one will dare to embarrass you. When the matter is settled, I will take you back to the 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School. So you should be able to rest assured." Hearing Tang Ge's words, Zhu Zhuking stared deeply at Tang Ge with her beautiful eyes, which were full of gratitude and undisguised affection. "Thank you, Tang Ge," but this time, Rongrong seemed to have thought of something. Suddenly his expression changed, and he couldn't help but speak hastily. "Tang Ge, what about you? Didn't you promise to accompany us before? Don't you mean nothing, and you are going to leave us alone and go out?" "No, I don't allow you to go out. Even if you want to go out, take us with you." After finishing speaking, she hugged Tang Ge's waist directly, and put her head in the other's arms, as if she was afraid that the other party would suddenly disappear in front of her again. After Lin Yuchen and Zhu Zhuking came back to their senses, reluctance appeared on their pretty faces. Obviously, like Ning Rongrong, they didn't want Tang Ge to leave them. But is it possible? Feeling the slightly trembling body of Karen in his arms, Tang Ge couldn't help but smile helplessly. While stroking the other person's hair, he sighed softly and opened his mouth. Wrong, I promised you before, but you have also seen that with my current strength, it is no longer suitable for me to stay in one place for a long time. On the contrary, if you are really with me, not only will your cultivation not improve much, but the gap between you and me will become wider and wider. This is not what I want to see. I hope that one day if I really become a god, the three of you can continue to be by my side instead of turning into three Lois and becoming a part of my memory. So stop messing around, obediently stay with Yuchen, Zhuking and the others to practice hard at the 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School, and strive to become a titled Douluo as soon as possible. Tang Ge said these words very straightforwardly and cruelly. In particular, the sentence turning into 3 Lois and becoming a part of memory made Lin Yuchen and Zhu Zhuking, who were originally reluctant to leave Tang Ge, tremble, and their beautiful eyes were filled with horror. It wasn't until this moment that they suddenly realized that the gap between themselves and Tang Ge was getting bigger and bigger. Moreover, he recalled the scene that happened outside the Pope's palace in Wuhan City. Yuchen and Zhu Zhuking deeply believed that if they couldn't keep up with Tang Ge's footsteps, such terrible things would really happen. After Lin Yuchen and Zhu Zhuking looked at each other, they both looked at Tang Ge, their beautiful eyes full of determination. Tang Ge, we will definitely catch up with you, okay? I hope there will be a long time between us, not this short-term company. Tang Ge was very pleased with the awareness of the second daughter. It's just that Ning Rongrong, who was crying in his arms, seemed unwilling to accept this fact, and suddenly broke free from his arms under stimulation. Woo! After all, you still want to abandon us. Tang Ge, you are a scumbag. After saying this, Ning Rongrong turned around and ran out of the woods with red eyes. Tang Ge, who stayed where he was, looked at his clothes soaked in tears, and then looked up at the leaving figure of the girl, and suddenly gave a wry smile. I really didn't expect that Tang Ge, would be scolded as a scumbag one day. End of this chapter. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 338 Formation Guard. A woman is like an ant when she is angry, she comes and goes quickly. After being scolded as a scumbag last night, Tang Ge knew that Ning Rongrong was just venting at that time, and was not worried that the other party would not think about it for a while and do something stupid. So he didn't catch up to comfort him as predicted. In the morning of the next day, not long after Tang Ge woke up, Ning Rongrong came over slowly, accompanied by Zhu Zhuking and Lin Yuchen. Tang Ge, I'm sorry, I couldn't hold back and scolded you last night. In front of Tang Ge, Ning Rongrong blushed slightly, and spoke in embarrassment. Tang Ge walked over and rubbed the girl's head with a smile, and said, if you scold me, I'll scold you. I'm sorry, can I be so narrow-minded in your eyes? No, Ning Rongrong hurriedly shook her head. In the end, seeing Tang Ge's smile really didn't look like she was angry, she felt relieved, and said seriously, Tang Ge, I figured it out, I can't be your burden like a burden. So I will obediently stay at home with Sister Yuchen and Sister Zhuking. We must practice hard and strive to catch up with you as soon as possible. After finishing speaking, Ning Rongrong couldn't help but clenched her small fists, showing a firm look. Seeing this scene, Tang Ge was very satisfied. So in order to show that Ning Rongrong did a good job, he directly kissed Lin Yuchen and Zhu Zhuking on the cheeks of each other as predicted. Although Lin Yuchen and Zhu Zhuking didn't say anything, Ning Rongrong's whole body was like a little hun returning from victory, her little head raised all of a sudden. Looking at her energetic appearance, it seems that Tang Ge has been successfully taken down. In the end, before Tang Ge could speak, Ning Rongrong took the initiative to hug Tang Ge's arm, urging, Tang Ge, didn't you say you want to go back to the 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School? Hurry up, let's go back now, this girl. Listening to Ning Rongrong's urging, Tang Ge really couldn't laugh or cry. But he was going to the 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School today, so he didn't refuse. After saying goodbye to Dean Flander and Daimyo Bei, he left Heavendao City with the 3 daughters and headed straight for 7 Treasure City. 7 Treasure City, 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School. After Ning Rongrong and Ning Fengzi exposed their Wuhan 9 Treasure Glazed Tile Pagoda one after another, the status of the sect suddenly rose, absorbing a lot of fresh blood. Even the Heaven Dao imperial family donated a soul bone and 2 soul guides at any cost in order to further win over the 7 treasure glazed tile school. This made Ning Fengzi feel even more that sending Rongrong to Shrek Academy was the most correct decision he made in his life. Of course, if Ning Rongrong knew about it, she would definitely not think so. It was clear that she sneaked out by herself and then joined Shrek Academy. How could it be the father's credit? But no matter what, it was the 7 treasure glazed tile school that ultimately benefited. So when Tang Ge came again at noon today and proposed to let Lin Yuchen and Zhu Ziuqing stay in the sect to practice, Ning Fengzi agreed without thinking. These 2 little girls are both geniuses. It is an honor for his sect to join his 7 treasure glazed tile school. It's just that girl Rongrong. Turning his head to see not far away happily leading the daughter of his 2 female classmates who were familiar with the sect's environment, Ning Fengzi suddenly had a wry smile on his face. Thinking that the patriarch of the 7 treasures glazed tile sect, is so talented, how could he give birth to such a stupid daughter? Other people's love rivals are always trying to kill them, but this girl is kind. She happily brought her love rival home. Accompanying Ning Fengzi to stay here is Sword Dao Luo Chengsen. Hearing Ning Fengzi's wry laugh, even though he was reserved and unwilling to speak, he couldn't help snorting at this moment. Now say this? Why didn't you refuse when you agreed to Tang Ge so happily just now, but now you are blaming your own daughter? In my opinion, Rongrong is much smarter than you. Uncle Jian, can't you give me some face? Anyway, I'm also a suzerain. And I already lost the right to speak of the sect to Tang Ge. Even if I am still the suzerain now, I can't refuse it. Facing Chen Xin's rebuttal, Ning Fengzi couldn't help but blushed and explained. It's up to you. I'm going to see how Tang Ge has arranged that formation. Chen Xin ignored Ning Fengzi, and directly stepped on the martial soul Yujian to fly, turning into a white light and disappearing. Ning Fengzi shook his head helplessly. It's not easy to be a suzerain these days, and it's even more difficult to be a good suzerain. Inside the 7 treasure glazed tile school, Tang Ge did not accompany Rongrong and Yuchen, but began to investigate the situation around the sect as soon as they arrived. After he checked around to confirm the overall situation, he didn't hesitate any longer and started to set up the array according to the points he had drawn before. That's right. Because of leaving Douluo world to go to other worlds, Tang Ge didn't know how long it would be before he left, so in order to ensure the safety of his friends in this world, he planned to deploy the upside-down 5-element formation he had just learned in the 7 treasure glazed tile school. Just now, after a round of investigation, he has already marked the formation points for arranging the formation, and now he only needs to buy one by one the spirit stones that will activate the formation. Although ordinary spirit stones are fine, whoever makes Tang Ge proud will directly use the best spirit stones quickly. He just buried all 360 top-grade spirit stones in the preset array point. The depth is enough, so there is no need to worry that someone from the 7 treasure glazed tile school will accidentally dig them out. Just at this moment, a figure was approaching quickly from a distance, stepping on a flying sword. Tang Ge, who had just set up the formation, couldn't help but smile slightly when he saw this scene. Following a gesture, an invisible wave appeared instantly and enveloped the figure stepping on the flying sword. Then this figure seemed to have lost its direction, and began to fly around incessantly, but it just couldn't fly out of that small area. Even if the opponent released countless terrifying sword ki to destroy the invisible enemy, it was like a stone sinking into the ocean, not even a single wave was stirred up. Seeing this scene, a satisfied smile appeared on Tang Ge's face. The power is good. In this case, I feel much more at ease. After a while, seeing that figure was exhausted and almost unable to support himself, Tang Ge dispersed the formation with a wave of his hand. The sky and the earth are clear again. A figure tens of meters away stepped on the flying sword and flew over unsteadily, and finally landed safely in front of Tang Ge. It was Sword Douluo Chenzin. It's just that compared with his sharp sword aura in the past, he is now completely weak and pale, as if a gust of wind could blow his eyes down at any time. In his eyes is filled with a touch of deep fear. Looking at Tang Ge at this moment, Chen Xin couldn't help but let out a hoarse trembling voice. Tang Ge, is the emptiness and chaos where the world is upside down and the sun and the moon are falling just now is the formation you mentioned. Ask for a monthly pass. End of this chapter. Chapter 339 Star Luo Empire, Zhu Family. Tang Ge's big formation was naturally an upside-down 5-element formation, covering the entire 7 treasure glazed tile school, Although it was not a killing formation, it was also very powerful. What's more, the ones driving this formation are all top-grade spirit stones. Although he didn't experience it himself, he also knew that once the great reversal of the five elements formation was launched, the five elements would be reversed and yin and yang would be confused. When the time comes, the people who enter the formation are obviously flying in the sky, but they have fallen into the endless abyss in their senses. If their own strength cannot suppress the power of the formation, they may be exhausted and unable to break free. So although this is not a killing formation, it is better than a killing formation. Chen Xin experienced such a terrifying scene just now. Even he, the majestic titled Douluo, could hardly escape, let alone other low-ranking soul masters. Therefore, seeing the fear in Chen Xin's eyes, Tang Ge was not surprised. He smiled and nodded, and said, "That's right, the name of this large formation is the Reversing Five Elements Formation, which has the great power to reverse time and space. You have also experienced it just now, Senior. The power of the big formation can not only trap a titled Douluo like you, even higher level ones can't easily break through the big formation I set up." Speaking of this, Tang Ge couldn't help showing strong confidence on his face. After Jian Douluo heard this, his pupils constricted, and his heart was extremely shocked. Is it difficult even for the existence of the transcended titled Douluo to break through this so-called five elements reversal formation? And because he had already experienced the power of the great formation, he naturally believed that Tang Ge was not lying, so while shocked, he was extremely grateful that this terrifying formation was in the hands of his own people. So after taking a deep breath to calm himself down, Sword Douluo Chen couldn't help but his eyes lit up, staring at Tang Ge and asking impatiently, "How to activate the formation? Do you need later maintenance?" "You don't have to worry about this, Senior. I will hand over the method of activating the formation to Uncle Ning. It does not need to be activated at ordinary times, and it only needs to be activated in an instant when there is an enemy invasion. As for the later maintenance, since I use a high-energy gemstone, don't worry about it." Hearing Jian Daoluo's question, Tang Ge replied with a smile. Jian Daoluo, on the other hand, agreed with Tang Ge's decision very much and nodded. It is true that the less people know about the method of activating such a terrifying formation, the better. If you have the style to master it, then I can rest assured. Let's go, Senior. There is another formation that needs to be arranged. Tang Ge laughed, and immediately soared into the sky, flying towards the main hall of the 7 treasure glazed tile sect. There are still formations to be arranged? Jian Daoluo couldn't help being stunned by this, but after recovering, he immediately chased after him impatiently. Subsequently, according to the previous plan, after setting up the upside-down 5-element formation covering the entire 7 treasure glazed tile school, Tang Ge arranged a small upside-down 5-element formation outside the main hall of the suzerain. This large formation is designed to deal with unexpected accidents. Besides, in the main hall of the suzerain, Tang Ge also set up the spirit gathering formation, and when 5 high-grade spirit stones were placed in the formation groove, the rich spiritual energy burst out suddenly. But after a while, the entire suzerain hall was filled with strong aura. Be in it. Whether it was Ning Fengzi, Sword Douluo or Bone Douluo, they were all pleasantly surprised to find that the soul power in their bodies began to grow uncontrollably and rapidly. This gathering spirit array is too amazing, right? For a moment, when Ning Fengzi and the 3 of them looked at Tang Ge again, it was as if they were looking at a monster, and their hearts were filled with disbelief. This boy is completely like the universe in the sky, full of mystery. In this regard, Tang Ge, who had harvested another wave of shock value, couldn't help being very satisfied, but secretly despised in his heart. It's just a spirit-gathering formation powered by top-grade spirit stones. So when Ning Fengzi and the other 3 started to stay in the hall to practice without their knowledge, Tang Ge accompanied Rongrong, Yuchen, and Zhuking, and set up a spirit-gathering formation powered by the best spirit stones in each of their rooms. Then as soon as the formation was activated, the strength of the spiritual energy gushing out was much stronger than that in the main hall of the suzerain. If Ning Fengzi knew about this situation, he would have the cheek to grab the room with his daughter. In this regard, Tang Ge naturally has countermeasures. So he just handed over the activation method of the 5 elements reversal formation to Ning Fengzi, and the activation method of the spirit gathering formation to Rongrong and the 3 daughters. Moreover, in order to ensure the long-term operation of the spirit gathering formation and the 5-element reversal formation, Tang Ge also left hundreds of top-grade spirit stones and thousands of top-grade spirit stones for the three women. So many spirit stones are enough for them to use for a long time. In the end, Tang Ge called Lin Yuchen aside alone, solemnly handed over the bottle of water of life he had drawn earlier, and explained the efficacy of the water of life in detail. When she learned that the water of life was not only of great help to her martial soul, but also had the effect of bringing the dead back to life, Lin Yuchen hurriedly put it into the soul guide as if she had found a treasure. She also assured Tang Ge that she would never tell anyone else. Tang Ge smiled and rubbed the other person's head, but said that how to use this thing is up to him to decide, so he took her back to the side of Rongrong and Zhuking. That's it. 3 days passed without knowing it. After staying in the 7 treasure glazed tile school for 3 days, after making all the follow-up arrangements, Tang Ge finally bid farewell to Ningfeng under the reluctant eyes of Rongrong and Yuchen, then took Zhu Zhuking out of Kibao City, and flew directly to the Star Luo Empire located in the southern part of the Douluo Continent on the Deaf and Bright ship. At the same time, neighboring to the Heaven Dao Empire and located in the southern part of the continent, the capital of the Star Luo Empire, whose national power is somewhat stronger than the Heaven Dao Empire, is Xingluo City. Here, a large number of wealthy and prominent families from the entire empire gathered. But there is one family that no other family can match, and that is the Zhu family. The Zhu family has been married to the Dai family of the Star Luo Empire for generations, and the daughter of the family firmly occupies the position of queen, so it can be said that they are true relatives of the emperor. But today, violent turbulence broke out in the peaceful Zhu family. When the eldest daughter Zhu Huayan learned that the second daughter Zhu Zhuking was getting close to other men while she was engaged to the third prince Dai Mu Bei, the Zhu family was so angry that they almost vomited blood and died. How could he give birth to such a shameless daughter? Where does this put him and the entire Zhu family? Not only the head of the Zhu family, but also other elders and clan members of the family were very angry. If this kind of thing spreads, the Zhu family will become a laughingstock in the entire Star Luo city. I am afraid that the royal family will not let the Zhu family go easily. Thinking of this, some elders immediately filled with righteous indignation, Patriarch, that girl's Zhuking must not be allowed to mess around with this matter, and please immediately send a soul master to bring her back to the family and restrict her travel. That's right, once this kind of thing happens, it will be very detrimental to my Zhu family, and Zhuking must be brought back immediately. And the person who bewitched Zhuking can't live, he must die. As long as you kill that person and avoid making bigger mistakes in time, even if His Majesty finds out, he will not pursue it because of the past achievements of my Zhu family. As the number 1 elder spoke, the other elders also spoke one after another. End of this chapter. Period. Chapter 340. Slapped to death. Hearing the angry accusations from the elders, the patriarch of the Zhu family also turned frosty. His eyes fell on his eldest daughter Zhu Huayan, and he asked in a deep voice, Yuner, are you sure that it is true that Zhuking has a relationship with another man? Who is the other man's name and what is his strength? Father, my daughter absolutely dare not tell any lies. Davis also knows about this. The man's name is Tang Ge, and he is not very old, maybe 14 years old. As for his strength, at this point, Zhu Huayan, who was somewhat similar to Zhu Zhuking in appearance, hesitated for a moment, and then said uncertainly, because this Tang Ge did not participate in the finals of the Soul Master competition, so my daughter was not able to see it with her own eyes. But according to rumors, many audiences from Heaven Dao City called that Tang Ge Tang God, saying that the other party was the Soul Emperor with a 10,000-year soul ring. 14 years old? 10,000 years soul ring soul emperor? As soon as these words came out, the head of the Zhu family suddenly frowned, and there was a trace of surprise in his eyes. If this is the case, then this young man named Tang Ge is too monstrous, and his talent is probably much stronger than those of the golden generation in Wuhandian. Once allowed to grow up, 9 out of 10 will reach title Douluo. If you think about it this way, she is actually worthy of that girl Kinger, and my Zhu family may have another Douluo level title in the future. Just as he was thinking, an elder suddenly laughed and interrupted the good thoughts of the patriarch of the Zhu family. The elder showed a sneer on his face, as if he had heard a big joke, and said, the Hun Emperor who is still 14 years old, just called himself a title Douluo. Do you really think my Zhu family is so stupid that I would believe such ridiculous lies? Patriarch, let's stop talking nonsense here. Since Prince Davis already knew about it, it might have reached His Majesty's ears at this time. We simply send someone to arrest this boy named Tang Ge and hand him over to His Majesty for disposal." Hearing the elder's proposal, the other elders also nodded in agreement. Seeing this, the patriarch of the Zhu family stopped thinking about it immediately, and gave an order. "In this case, I will leave this matter to you, Elder Zhu Heng. You go there in person, and then select a soul saint level priest from the family, and take this child back to Douluo City as soon as possible." "Patriarch, don't worry, I will bring him back soon." Elder Zhu Heng, who supported Prince Davis' faction, couldn't help but a gleam of coldness flashed in his eyes. After making the arrangement, he immediately turned and left a meeting room. Immediately, he and a soul sage in his family left Douluo City and flew directly towards the direction of Xiandao City of Heaven Dao Empire. Time flies. Before he knew it, a day had passed since Tang Ge and Zhu Zhuking set off from the 7 treasure glazed tile sect to the Star Luo Empire. Although according to the speed of Dafan Guangming's ship, it can pass through the Heaven Dao Empire in Wuhan City in half a day and reach the territory of the Star Luo Empire. But Tang Ge was not in such a hurry. In addition, Zhu Zhuking didn't urge her, so he just accompanied this girl through a rare 2-person world, doing some shameless things on the bed. So it was not until noon the next day that the Dafan lightship finally arrived at the Star Luo Empire. At this time, Tang Ge was lying on a blanket specially spread on the deck, resting his head on Zhu Zhuking's leg while squinting his eyes to enjoy Zhu Zhuking's massage. Suddenly, Dafan lightship seemed to be under attack, and trembled slightly. "What happened? Anyone else dare to send it to your door?" Tang Ge, who was alarmed, couldn't help but frowned, with a look of displeasure on his face. "Tang Ge, we've arrived in the Star Luo Empire now, why don't we put the boat away first?" Zhu Zhuking seemed to realize that someone was attacking the Dafan bright ship, and couldn't help but worry. Although Tang Ge didn't care, he still nodded. "Well, that's fine. But I want to see who dares to attack us." After the words fell, following his thoughts, the Dafan light ship beneath him shone brightly for a burst of light, then shrank instantly and disappeared in place. The great Brahma light ship was put away. Tang Ge held Zhu Zhuking's waist with his right hand and floated in the air. The opposite is tens of meters away. I don't know when 2 old men appeared, and they were obviously the chief culprits who attacked Dafan bright ship. But at this moment, the 2 of them didn't seem to have expected how such a big and strange ship would suddenly disappear in front of their eyes, so their faces were full of astonishment. But soon after the strange ship disappeared, the 2 figures that appeared again immediately attracted their attention. When he saw Zhu Zhuking, who was exposed in his arms by Tang Ge, one of the old men was startled for a moment, then furious, and directly accused him. "Good girl, before I came here, I didn't believe what your sister said, but now it seems that your sister just said it lightly. You clearly know that you already have a marriage contract with a 3rd Prince Xingluo, but you are so intimate with other men in secret, it is really shameless. Are you worthy of your father's cultivation and the Zhu family's cultivation?" These words were so serious that Zhu Zhuking's whole body fell down all of a sudden. He couldn't help but lowered his head with his lips pursed. His pretty face looked very pale. Seeing this scene, the old man who accused Zhu Zhuking became more complacent. "But because of your young age and ignorance, there is still room for redemption. As long as you abolish your soul power now, and then I kill the kid next to you, there is still room for redemption." Having said that, his eyes moved directly to Tang Ge, who was holding Zhu Zhuking. His eyes were full of coldness. "As long as this girl Zhu Zhuking can be abolished, the 3rd prince will lose a lot of help, let alone compete with the 1st prince for the crown prince." Thinking of this, the old man didn't even hide the killing intent on his body anymore. Apparently he felt that dealing with a mere 14-year-old kid was easy, and couldn't be easier opposite. Tang Ge felt the killing intent from the old man. Looking at the downcast Zhu Zhuking, his expression also turned cold, and he said, "Zhu Qing, who is this immortal?" "Yes, it's the 3rd elder of the family, Zhu Heng," Zhuking said in a low voice. "Is that so?" After hearing Zhu Zhuking's identity of the other party, Tang Ge narrowed his eyes, and without any warning, he suddenly raised his hand and slapped the old man opposite him. Under the vibration of the void, a gigantic palm instantly condensed and slapped the old man fiercely. Even when the old man finally reacted and released a martial soul and the 6 soul rings representing the cultivation of the Soul Emperor, he couldn't block Tang Ge's blow, and immediately let out a shrill scream. Immediately afterwards, his whole body fell directly towards the ground like a meteor falling from the sky. It didn't take long. There was a heavy bang impact sound. Ask for a monthly pass. End of this chapter. Chapter 341 She is my woman. Tang Ge's attack was so sudden that when another priest from the Zhu family realized, Elder Zhu Hengsan who came with him had already been slapped down by a huge palm. Accompanied by the dull sound of falling to the ground, the priest could still clearly see the corpse and the deep pit through the smoke and dust. His body was smashed to pieces and his flesh was bloody. The dead can no longer die. Immediately, the priest couldn't help but gasp, and looked at Tang Ge opposite with horrified eyes. He swallowed hard and said in a trembling voice, You actually killed Elder Zhu Heng, what? Should he die? Hearing the enshrined words of the Zhu family, Tang Ge's eyes turned cold, and he raised his palm again. Just a soul saint. Even if Contra and titled Douluo come, he can still kill them. As a result, when the priest of the Zhu family saw Tang Ge and raised his palm again, he was so frightened that he plopped and knelt down. Even in mid-air, he felt like he was kneeling on the ground. Facing this young man who could kill the elder of the Soul Emperor with a single hand, the Zhu family priest had no doubt that even the Soul Sage himself could not stop the opponent's palm. So while secretly cursing the Zhu family's intelligence rubbish, he begged for mercy loudly despite the embarrassment. Don't kill me, all this is Zhu Heng's own idea, I just accompany him for a walk. And the matter about you is told by Miss Zhuking's sister Zhu Huayin to her father. If Elder Zhu Heng didn't bring Miss Zhuking back this time, he would definitely send other soul masters. Even the royal family of the Star Luo Empire might not easily let Miss Zhuking go. Immediately, the envoy of the Zhu family told all about the situation. After listening to Tang Ge, he immediately understood that this still involved a competition for the crown prince of the Star Luo Empire. As the first prince's fiancé, Zhu Huayan naturally wanted to use this incident to destroy Zhu Zhuking and Dai Mu Bei's marriage, thus weakening his advantage in competing for the crown prince. And the third elder of the Zhu family, who supported the eldest prince, even wanted to abolish Zhu Zhuking, so that there would be no room for maneuver in this matter. But unfortunately, they never calculated that the one who could snatch the woman from the third prince of the Star Luo Empire was not an ordinary person, but a legendary boy who could suppress even the Pope of the Spirit Hall. Therefore, Zhu Heng, the third elder of the Zhu family who just came here, said something proudly, and went directly to see King Hades. In order to save his life, the priests of the Zhu family who came with him knelt down and begged for mercy. In the end, under the uneasy mood of the priest of the Zhu family, after Tang Ge recovered from his contemplation, his eyes fell on him again. Tang Ge, let him go. After all, he is the enshrinement of my Zhu family. I don't want to embarrass my father too much. On the side, Zhu Zhuking suddenly spoke. In fact, when she chose to be with Tang Ge, she had already realized that something like this would happen today. As for his father's concept of putting the interests of the family first, as a member of the Zhu family, Zhu Zhuking can understand his father's approach. After all, she was the one who made the mistake first, so I don't blame my father for his decision. What's more, Tang Ge had already killed the third elder, which was also to vent his anger on Zhu Zhuking. If another priest is killed, it will be a big blow to the entire Zhu family, and the other families are even more happy to see the Zhu family fall. But this is not what Zhu Zhuking wants to see. So when she spoke, there was a hint of request in her eyes. Seeing this scene, Tang Ge couldn't help but sighed softly, and rubbed the opponent's head. Girl, you are still too soft-hearted, thank you. After Zhu Zhuking heard it, he understood that Tang Ge had agreed to himself, and immediately blushed and kissed the other party, and put his head lightly on the other party's shoulder. On the opposite side, the elders of the Zhu family saw the scene in front of them that could make the head of the Zhu family vomit blood, and quickly lowered their heads even lower. He kept praying in his heart. I do not know anything, I did not see anything. Don't kill me. Fortunately, when this priest of the Zhu family was extremely nervous, a voice like the sounds of nature suddenly reached his ears. Okay, get out. Remember to tell the patriarch of the Zhu family when you go back, and I will take Zhuking to Xingluo City to meet him in a short time. Actually, really let me go? Hearing Tang Ge's words, the priest of the Zhu family froze for a moment, then nodded excitedly. Thank you. Thank you. I will definitely bring the words, definitely bring them. Immediately, he got up and ran away quickly. It wasn't until the person disappeared that Tang Ge looked away, looked at Zhu Zhuking at the side, and said with a light smile, don't worry, with me here, no one would dare to do anything to you. And for a good boy like me, I don't believe that after your father sees me, he will be willing to stop you from being with me. After all, I am the god Tang who can suppress the entire Wuhan Hall by myself. After speaking, a strong self-confidence was immediately released from him. Zhu Huqing was infected, and the worry in his heart was instantly dispelled. He looked at Tang Ge with adoring eyes, and nodded obediently. Well, I believe you, ha 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 ha. Tang Ge couldn't help laughing, hugged Zhu Huqing tightly, and spread the wings of yin and yang, turned into black and white light, and flew towards the direction where the priest of the Zhu family had just escaped. Even in the end, without the knowledge of this priest of the Zhu family, he had completely fallen behind Tang Ge and Zhu Huqing. Star Luo City, Zhu family. Because the 3 elders and priests were sent to Xiandao Empire to lead people yesterday, so as the head of the family, Zhu Huqing's father never went out again. He knew in his heart that if this matter was not handled properly, the Xingluo royal family would never let the Zhu family go easily. Other families would not mind taking this opportunity to suppress the Zhu family. So even though Zhu Huqing was his daughter, the patriarch of the Zhu family was also extremely angry, sitting in the meeting hall with a very gloomy expression. If I had known this earlier, I would have said nothing to let this girl go out to wander around, but now I am in a dilemma. After I bring this girl back, I must strictly prohibit her from leaving the Zhu family's gate again. Just as he was annoyed, a clear voice suddenly sounded outside Zhu's house. Patriarch Zhu, I have brought your daughter back. My daughter is back? Hearing this voice, the patriarch of the Zhu family froze for a moment. Then seemed to think of something, and stood up from the chair all of a sudden. How courageous! How dare you send it to your door yourself? Immediately, he walked out of the conference hall angrily, and walked straight to the gate of Zhu's house at the same time. Outside the courtyard of the Zhu family, some members of the Zhu family had already been shocked and rushed out. When they looked up and saw a man and a woman in the air, they cursed as if they saw something that made them angry. Who are you? Let go of your hand. Can you hug me? Sisters Huqing, Zhu Huqing and the third prince had a marriage contract a long time ago, and you still dare to do this? Aren't you afraid of death? Quick! Let me go, or don't worry about us being rude to you. Zhu Huqing, what are you doing? This is your home. Do you still want to embarrass your father? Hearing the abuse and accusations from many Zhu family members below, Zhu Huqing's pretty face darkened, and she wanted to break free from Tang Ge's arms. But instead of loosening Tang Ge, he hugged him even tighter. At the same time, his eyes swept over the members of the Zhu family below, and he sneered and said, "She is my woman. Should I hug her? Or do you have an opinion?" End of this chapter. Chapter 342. One finger collapses the mountain, the stars are dim. Tang Ge brought Zhu Huqing back to Xingluo's house this time, naturally not to kill people, but to help Zhu Huqing break off the marriage contract between the other party and Daimyo Bei, so that he has no worries. So after killing the third elder who committed suicide, he didn't want to kill again. Anyway, this Zhu family is Zhu Huqing's family. Killing too many people will not only affect Zhu Huqing's mood, but also help the enemy. Therefore, the moment Tang Ge opened his mouth, he released his martial soul and soul ring hum. With the appearance of the map of mountains, rivers and land, 7 spirit rings rose from Tang Ge's feet one after another, moving up and down rhythmically around his body. 5 black, 2 reds. As soon as these 2 soul ring colors were released, they were like the brightest stars in the sky, bursting out with brilliant brilliance, which made everyone present couldn't help but close their eyes. But soon, the sound of gasping for air came out one after another. When they saw the 7 spirit rings emerging from Tang Ge's body, the faces of the Zhu family gathered outside the Zhu family courtyard, whether they were the younger generation or the elders, showed shock on their faces. They couldn't help but widen their eyes, their expressions were dull, and their minds were full of strong doubts. How can it be? This is impossible. But the facts prove that the young man holding Zhu Huqing who appeared outside the Zhu family compound at this moment is really a soul sage with 5 10,000-year soul rings and 2 10,000-year soul rings. Unless the color of the soul ring is deceiving. Even the patriarch of the Zhu family, who was originally full of anger, rushed out of the conference hall, was staggered by the scene in front of him, and almost fell to the ground. He stopped at the door, and his heart began to plop and plop violently like a wild horse that had run wild. Kinger, where did she find the man? This 10-year level spirit ring is probably difficult for most titled Douluo to possess, and there are 2 when it appears. It's too monstrous. For a moment, the words of the head of the Zhu family, who were originally full of scolding, were swallowed back into his stomach involuntarily along with a mouthful of spit. He raised his head and said with a trembling voice, Zhuking, you're back? Can you introduce the boy next to you to Dad? Hearing the patriarch of the Zhu family ask, and seeing the shock and disbelief on the faces of the other people below, the worries in Zhuking's heart completely disappeared. She smiled lightly and said, Dad, his name is Tang Ge, and he is my daughter's classmate. Of course, I'm still his man. This sentence was added by Tang Ge. While releasing the martial soul and soul ring, he didn't restrain the aura on his body, so the combination of the 10,000-year soul ring and the 10-year soul ring gave off an aura no less than that of a tidal Douluo. Faced with this terrifying aura, the Zhu family who scolded Huanqi just now were silent, for fear of accidentally offending this person. As for Zhuking's daring to bring a man back, no one dared to care about it. The same is true of the head of the Zhu family. At this moment, while regretting why he sent someone to arrest his daughter so stupidly yesterday, he forced a smile and nodded. I didn't expect Zhuking to know a genius like you. It's really her blessing. You can be together. As a father, I can rest assured, so you agree with me being with your daughter? Tang Ge frowned and asked. The head of the Zhu family nodded immediately. Of course I agree, Zhuking, did you hear that? Your father agreed, so you can rest assured now. After getting the confirmation from the head of the Zhu family, Tang Ge couldn't help smiling and looking at Zhuking in his arms. Zhuking's pretty face flushed slightly, and she gave a low then hid her head in the opponent's arms embarrassingly. Seeing this, the patriarch of the Zhu family below was not only not angry, but his eyes lit up suddenly. As a soul Douluo, he can be sure that the boy who is holding his daughter will definitely become a tidal Douluo just by the 5 black, 2 red and 7 soul rings on his body. Moreover, even if the opponent is among the tidal Douluo, he will still be a very strong existence. Once the other party marries his daughter, he will be the son-in-law of the Zhu family, and the Zhu family will also rise in status because of the appearance of a tidal Douluo. This is a completely unique opportunity. In addition, this young man named Tang Ge was able to bring his daughter to appear outside Zhu's house in Starluo City so quickly, presumably because he failed to meet the third elder and the priest who left yesterday. This made the head of the Zhu family secretly rejoice. In order to fulfill his daughter, he hurriedly said again, Ziojet, let me call you Ziojet. I know you really like my daughter. It's just that you must have known about the Zhu family's situation when you came here. Zhuking had a marriage contract with the third prince of the Xingluo royal family since she was a child. Although I don't agree with this marriage contract, you also know that my Zhu family is in Xingluo, and some things cannot be decided by me as a father. Speaking of this, the patriarch of the Zhu family showed an appropriate and melancholy look. Seeing this, the other Zhu family members around were very speechless and thought to themselves, Patriarch, you didn't think so yesterday. But they only dare to think about it. If they really say it, they may lose their lives. And Tang Ge couldn't help but be amazed. He thought that his skin was already thick enough, but he didn't expect anyone else to be thicker than him. Found it today. But Tang Ge didn't pierce the patriarch of the Zhu family's thoughts, nodded and said, what you said is indeed reasonable, but don't worry about it. Zhuking and I are both classmates of that guy Daimyo. Not only did he not object to Zhuking and I being able to be together, but he also sincerely expressed his blessings for us. Of course, since I am here today, I will naturally go to the Xingluo royal family to help Zhuking break up the engagement. After all, she is Tang Ge's woman. After speaking, with the help of his soul power, Zhuking, who was originally in his arms, was immediately sent down to the side of the patriarch of the Zhu family. Before I come back, help me take good care of Zhuking. Immediately, Tang Ge turned around and flew towards the Xingluo city palace. Zhuking, who stayed outside the Zhu family compound, saw Tang Ge leaving, and couldn't help but show a hint of worry on her pretty face. But the head of the Zhu family next to her patted her on the shoulder and said with a smile, Kinger, don't worry, with Zioje's strength of 2 10-year soul rings, the Xingluo royal family is also threatening her. Less than his. Wait here quietly, maybe Zioje will come back after a while. It's just that the head of the Zhu family didn't expect it. He had just finished comforting Zhuking when a finger suddenly appeared in the clear sky above the Xingluo palace in the distance, as if tearing apart the space and instantly pointing to a mountain range outside the city. Rumble. Rumble. Accompanied by the deafening explosion, the mountains outside the city that stretched for tens of miles were instantly destroyed like tofu under the finger of that bright light. Crashed. The sun and the moon are dull. Even the majestic Starluo city was shaken violently by it, and it looked extremely dim under such a majestic force. End of this chapter. Chapter 343. Something happened. Reopen the gates of the heavens. The violent explosion caused the ground to tremble, and Douluo City was implicated. Many houses could not stand the test and collapsed into ruins. Countless residents were frightened and fled out of the house in a panic. More people looked up at the place where the mysterious giant finger appeared in the sky above the Douluo Palace. Their eyes were full of panic and helplessness. What happened? Is the sky falling? Even the Zhu family, which was far away from the palace, was affected. In the sudden shock just now, many family members who had gathered outside the compound because of Tang Ge's arrival fell to the ground one by one. Zhu's Huking was also almost knocked down. But the head of the Zhu family, who was at the side, helped her in time. Dad, that was just now. Powerful attack. Irresistible power. Although I don't know what happened outside the city, that light finger made me feel the breath of death. Hearing his daughter's question, the patriarch of the Zhu family revealed a look of fear in his eyes. As if he had guessed something, he said in a trembling voice, "Maybe this is Xiaoji's way to help you break off your engagement with the royal family." No wonder he associated this terrifying attack with Tang Ge's release. Because even though that shocking finger was only fleetingly above the imperial palace, the power contained in it could only be achieved by Tang Ge's 10-year soul ring, apart from title Douluo. But in this Douluo city, the patriarch of the Zhu family never remembered that there was a title Douluo who could master such a shocking soul skill. Moreover, that shocking finger appeared from the sky above the Douluo imperial palace, but instead of falling into the city, it flew out of the city. It was obviously intended to frighten the Douluo imperial family. So visible. The attack must have been sent by Tang Ge. For a while, the patriarch of the Zhu family became more and more excited, wishing he could quickly arrange the marriage between his daughter and Tang Ge in front of all members of the Zhu family today. And when he was thinking like this, after the shock, Douluo Palace also welcomed an unexpected guest. It was Tang Ge. Although it was said that the marriage between Zhu's Huking and Daimyo Bei was to be dissolved, Daimyo Bei was his classmate after all, so he still took into account the feelings of the old Dai, and did not make this matter aroused. And the sky-cutting finger just now was just Tang Ge's method to intimidate the Douluo royal family before the opening as predicted. As Tang Ge fell into the palace, after witnessing the 5 black, 2 red and 7 terrifying soul rings on the opponent's body and the shocking finger that instantly destroyed a mountain range. Although His Majesty Douluo sent out the royal title Douluo in time after he realized it, he didn't dare to let the title Douluo do it directly, but politely invited Tang Ge into the hall. Subsequently, after showing his strength to suppress title Douluo at close range in the hall, Tang Ge proposed that Zhu's Huking and Daimyo Bei dissolve their engagement. By the way, he also talked about his relationship with Daimyo Bei, including that Daimyo Bei himself agreed to dissolve the engagement. Even though the dissolution of the engagement was a great shame to the entire Douluo royal family, His Majesty Douluo was even livid with anger. While being angry at Tang Ge's domineering, he secretly scolded his son for his incompetence and weakness. But seeing the terrified appearance of the title Douluo accompanying him, who completely lost the idea of resisting, His Majesty Douluo was still defeated by reality after all, and had no choice but to nod in agreement. "Then ask your Majesty to write a proof." Tang Ge couldn't help laughing. Seeing this, His Majesty Douluo gritted his teeth angrily. But he still ordered people to prepare a pen, ink, paper and inkstone, and personally wrote down the dissolution of the engagement between the 3rd prince and the 2nd daughter of the Zhu family, and stamped the emperor's seal on it. Seeing Tang Ge accepting the certificate, His Majesty Douluo couldn't help but said in a cold voice, "Are you satisfied now? Can you tell me which sect you are from?" "The Clear Sky School, because the surname Tang is so powerful." Besides the Clear Sky School, he really can't think of any family that would have such a monstrous young man. It's just a pity that His Majesty Douluo still guessed wrong. Tang Ge smiled and shook his head. "I have only had one grandfather since I was a child, and he came from a remote mountain village. The surname Tang is just accidental, and he doesn't have any family background. What's more, Hao Xianzong can't tolerate a great god like me." "From a remote mountain village?" If the emperor believed your words, he would be bewitched. Seeing that the young man was unwilling to tell the truth, His Majesty Douluo didn't ask any more questions, and pointed to the exit of the main hall. "Since your goal has been achieved, you can leave now, Your Majesty. In fact, you don't have to be angry. After all, marriage without love cannot be forced. Besides, Daimyo is my classmate. He lost his love, but gained my friendship. Don't you think that for Daimyo and your Star Luo Empire, you actually gain more than you lose, don't you? Facing His Majesty Xing Luo's order to chase away guests, Tang Ge glanced at the other party, left such a sentence, then turned around and walked out of the Xing Luo hall. People just left. His Majesty Xing Luo could no longer hold back the anger in his heart, and slapped the table next to him to death. Damn it. It's really hateful. When did my Star Luo Empire fall to such a point that I even dare to bully a 14-year-old boy? The Pope of the Wuhan Palace did not dare to treat this emperor like this. How dare he do this? Hearing His Majesty Xing Luo's roar, the titled Douluo who was accompanying here couldn't help but feel contemptuous in his heart, saying this now, if you have the ability to stop that boy just now. But after all, he was his employer, and this titled Douluo cooperated with His Majesty Xing Luo and began to belittle the boy constantly. But in his heart, he secretly reminded himself that when he turned around, he would warn those behind him who wanted to touch the Zhu family. To be honest, a boy who is only 14 years old and has 2 10-year soul rings, is that something that people can offend? After finishing the marriage contract, Tang Ge returned to the Zhu family as soon as he left Xingluo Palace, and stayed with Zhu Huqing for 3 days under the warm hospitality of the head of the Zhu family. During this period, the entire Zhu family knew about the relationship between Zhu Huqing and Tang Ge, coupled with the return of going out to worship, and the news that the third elder was killed. Everyone in the Zhu family dared not speak ill of Zhu Huqing. Especially Zhu Huaiyan, Zhu Huqing's eldest sister, was so frightened that she hid outside and dared not come back because of the instigation. Tang Ge didn't care much about this, he stayed here entirely to accompany Zhu Huqing. So once the scheduled 3 days passed, he didn't have any nostalgia, and directly took Zhu Huqing out of Xingluo City, and returned to the 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School in the 7 Treasure City of the Heavendao Empire. Finally, Zhu Huqing, Ning Rongrong, and Lin Yuchen were all arranged properly, and Tang Ge appeared alone in a valley dozens of miles away from Xiandao City. Randomly arranged the 5 elements upside-down array. Tang Ge sat cross-legged in the formation, muttering to himself with anticipation in his eyes. The gate of the heavens is open again. I don't know what interesting things will happen in this time travel. It's really exciting. Ask for a monthly pass. End of this chapter. Chapter 344 Changing Lanes Midway, Mandatory Task. Sitting cross-legged on the ground, the formation was activated, and Tang Ge's figure was immediately covered. As he muttered to himself, the gate of the heavens that had already been drawn was suddenly formed out of thin air, and turned into a dark and vortexed arch a few meters away. And because the 3 timelines of the power of fighting against the sky were used at the same time, the dark arch full of vortexes is connected to the world of fighting. A door separates the 2 worlds, which really makes people very excited after seeing it. Although Tang Ge has traveled through once, he is still quite excited. Xiao Yan, brother, I'm here, wait for me. Thinking of this, he stopped hesitating immediately, got up and took a step out. The whole person instantly plunged into the vortex arch and disappeared in place. Outside the world, there is a terrifying endless void. With the gate of the heavens, Tang Ge had the opportunity to use a stable space-time channel to go from the world of Douluo Continent to the world of Shrouding the Sky and return smoothly. The same is true for going to the world of Daobreak Firmament this time. Because he had already experienced a violent bump when traveling through the time and space channel, Tang Ge was not panicked by the dizziness that followed after entering the gate of the heavens. He just tried harder to adapt to this uncomfortable feeling, and thought to himself, it shouldn't be long before it's over, right? But as soon as he thought of this, Tang Ge found that his body, which was moving forward rapidly, seemed to be pulled back severely by a hand, and suddenly stopped. Then a rapid system prompt sounded in his mind. Ding dong, an abnormal signal was detected, the target of the host's traversal was temporarily changed, the coordinate position was relocated, the location was successful, and the location was an unknown high-level plane. Please host, get ready, a new space-time channel has been opened, start to shuttle. Accompanied by the system prompt, the originally stable space-time channel suddenly began to shake violently, and then another channel on the left side of Tang Ge's body was forcibly opened up by a mysterious force. Can the goal of crossing be changed? What the hell? Moreover, this passage had just been formed, and before Tang Ge could react, the invisible big hand that had stopped him just now threw him into this passage in an instant. Immediately afterwards, This space-time channel that originally led to the world of Daybreak Firmament was also shattered like glass click and click under the influence of an unknown force. In the end, it was completely swallowed by the turbulent void around it. And Tang Ge, who was thrown into the new space-time passage before, was caught off guard and failed to appreciate the beautiful scenery in the passage, and passed out directly. Otherwise, let him see that his way back to the world of Douluo Continent is gone. How should he feel? I don't know how long it took. When Tang Ge's consciousness broke free from the darkness and regained consciousness, he opened his eyes and found that he was wearing a coarse cloth and rags, lying on a hard wooden bed covered with only a layer of licorice. Since he is still alive, it means that there is no danger nearby. So Tang Ge was not in a hurry to explore the environment he was in at the moment, but quickly understood his physical condition. No injuries. No force at all. At most. It was due to the exhaustion of soul power in the body and the drying up of the source of God in the sea of bitterness, and temporarily fell into weakness. So far so good. Knowing this, Tang Ge, who had been worried all the time, couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. But immediately his face turned bitter like a papaya. For a long time, because of the help of the system's own son, Tang Ge never thought that he would have problems with the system one day. After all, it is really rare to see a system that does not issue mandatory tasks and also sends them there. Even the famous saying traveling is risky, you need to be cautious when traveling, because of the gate of the heavens, Tang Ge didn't take it to heart at all. Results now. Facts have proved that crossing is really risky, and it is still a big risk. What even made Tang Ge extremely sad was that the accident of time travel this time was caused by the system that usually kept its own way, and it even gave him a temporary change of direction. That is a space-time channel, and it can change direction temporarily? This really opened Tang Ge's horizons. Fortunately, the pit returns to the pit. But the system is also doing its duty, not letting the host really fall into danger, but doing everything possible to protect the host's safety, and finally landed successfully. Otherwise, Tang Ge wouldn't have the opportunity to lie here and complain about the system in his heart. So thinking about it, he wanted to call up the personal information panel to see his latest information so as to prepare for the next arrangement. Because he has already confirmed that after the space-time channel is changed, this place is no longer the world of Daybreak Firmament. So, fighting power level, goodbye. Fellow traveler, Zhao Yan, farewell. But at this moment, the system sound suddenly rang in Tang Ge's mind again. Ding dong, it has been checked that the host has traversed successfully and awakened. According to the special circumstances of this world, the system now arranges the following tasks for the host. Task, collect 1 million shock points. The time is 5 years. There is no reward for completing the task. The penalty for failure is that the system is separated from the host. Task 30, search and recover the system fragments lost in this world. The time is, years. After completing the task, the reward system is upgraded, and the penalty for failure is that the host will stay in this world forever. From now on, the system will seal the host's current shock value and all strength realms except the reserve martial skills, until mission 1 is completed. Hearing the system sound, Tang Ge's face darkened, and he finally understood the reason why the system caused him to suddenly switch worlds. It turned out that it was for the fragments of his own body. It's just that you released the mandatory mission, so why seal my strength? When he was depressed, Tang Ge could clearly feel that as the sound of the system fell, the soul power and sea of bitterness that had already dried up had completely fallen into dead silence. No matter how hard he tried, he could no longer recover and use these two energies. The only thing that made Tang Ge breathe a sigh of relief. The power of his ancient holy body is still there, the system space can also be opened, and many martial arts mastered can also be used. It's just that if you want to fully display the power of these martial arts, you need to master another new energy. So without knowing the new world, Tang Ge can only temporarily be an honest boy before his strength is unblocked. Thinking of this, he called up the personal information panel, shocking system, host, Tang Ge, level 79 Soul Sage Lun Hei, the other side, under seal, martial souls, twin martial souls, the map of mountains and rivers, the 4 swords of immortals, are being sealed, spirit ring, black, red, affected by the field of mountains and rivers, can be merged into one and change any color sealing, soul skill, mountain and river domain, unique, currently covering a spherical area with a radius of, meters around the host, soul spike, wings of yin and yang, Mahamudra of life and death, Tai Chi sword formation, incarnation of giant spirit god, heaven hearing and earth vision, sealing. Martial skills, wind hammer method, secret of Xing, hell smelting, heavenly god fist, battle robe of gods, cutting fingers, giant spirit Mahamudra, reversing 5 elements formation, gathering spirit formation, physique, ancient holy body, awakening 32%, shock value 0, under seal. End of this chapter. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 345. So it was premeditated. Really? When I saw my information at this moment, except for the column of martial skills and physique, all others including realm and martial soul were temporarily sealed and could not be used. However, I remember that I just harvested a wave of shock points before crossing? Even if there is number 30, it must be increased to 20, right? But now, why did it become 0? Finally, when his eyes fell on the column of the shock value that was also sealed, Tang Ge's expression suddenly became bewildered. He couldn't help but check the system information, only to find that these shock points were all consumed when he traveled through the space-time channel. Because the temporary space-time channel needs to be stabilized, the system used Tang Ge's shock value on its own initiative. But that's your system's business, so what does it have to do with me? Tang Ge really wanted to reprimand the system for being dishonest, but considering that he had to rely on this guy if he wanted to leave this world, he had no choice but to give up. Forget it, it's only 32, shock points. As long as I work hard, not to mention this shock point, it will not be difficult to complete the first million shock point mission. So the most important thing right now is to figure out where I am now and what kind of world this world is. Thinking in his heart, Tang Ge sat up and prepared to get out of bed. But as soon as he moved, the door of the simple earthen house was suddenly pushed open, and an old man about 60 years old walked in with a cane. Seeing Tang Ge sitting up from the bed, the old man was also slightly taken aback. But after reacting, his frown suddenly relaxed, and a kind smile appeared on his old face. Little boy, you're finally awake. At noon, the sun was high in the sky, and the local dogs running wildly on the dirt road in the village under the fiery light all stuck out their long tongues and panted non-stop. Among them, at the gate of the courtyard with 3 earthen houses in the center of the village, a handsome young man in coarse clothes was propping his chin with both hands, sitting in the shade of the eaves in a daze. This boy is none other than Tang Ge. Half an hour has passed since he woke up, but he learned a lot of information in half an hour. First of all, the village in front of me is called Xianjia Village, which belongs to Lin County, Wu'an County, Daking Country. Tang Ge accidentally fell outside Xianjia Village because he fainted temporarily during the time travel, and was discovered by the villagers. Although the villagers are simple, but considering their own situation and not wanting to cause trouble, they told the village chief Yan Lao about this matter. Elder Yan is the old man from before. Just because he is alone and has lived long enough, he is not afraid of any trouble. So after learning about Tang Ge from the villagers, he asked the villagers to take the little boy back to his home and take care of him carefully. When Tang Ge woke up, he used amnesia as an excuse to prevaricate his identity, and knew that he had been in a coma for a whole day since he came from this world. And combined with the situation of the villagers in the village and Yan Lao's narration, Tang Ge already understood. From the surface, this world is similar to the ancient times of the previous life. But the real situation is obviously not the case. Although the farthest place Yan Lao has been to in his life is Lin County. His vision is not so broad, and he doesn't even know what is going on outside Lin County. Less to see does not necessarily mean less to hear. Tang Ge has already learned from the other party that Lin County not only has powerful warriors, but even immortals flying into the sky and hiding from the earth. Because in the past, there were rumors that a certain child in King County was taken away by immortals. As for the authenticity, Mr. Yan couldn't tell. But after Tang Ge heard it, he judged it instantly. Regardless of whether there are immortals in this world, there must be immortals. Otherwise, the system wouldn't have worked so hard to bring him suddenly into this world to complete those 2 mandatory tasks. And at this time, Tang Ge finally realized it. In his last 10 consecutive draws before crossing, Why did most of the draws be cultivation resources? It turned out that the system had planned it long ago, and dug the hole secretly, just waiting for me to jump stupidly. But in the end, I really chose it. For a moment, Tang Ge didn't know whether to cry or laugh. What made him cry was that the system didn't discuss this matter with him, and just gave him a cut first and then a play. The laugh is that the system is really considerate, and it has prepared so many cultivation resources for him early on. Leaving aside the 10 immortal crystals and 40 top-grade spirit stones, the top-grade spirit stones alone are the property of a huge fortune. I'm afraid even the people in the fairy gate will be jealous when they see it. Thinking of this, there was a sudden sound of footsteps behind him. When Tang Ge turned his head to look around, he realized that it was Mr. Yan, the village head, who had arrived. After all, he was the one who saved him, so he quickly stood up and reached out to support him. Grandpa Village Chief, why did you come out? Of course I told you to go back to eat, Tian Lao said with a smile. But he didn't know if he had guessed what Tang Ge was thinking, and he spoke again. What? Still thinking about immortals? Well, although Tang Ge doesn't remember what happened before, but he has a faint obsession, which seems to be related to the immortal. Perhaps Tang Ge's coma outside the village this time was to find out why the immortal wanted to worship the immortal gate. Hearing Tian Lao's question, Tang Ge nodded and said with a disappointed face. Lost and pretended. But finding immortals and worshipping immortals is his real idea. Because if there really are immortals in this world, Tang Ge really has to find an immortal sect to join if he wants to complete the 2 system tasks within the stipulated time. Only in this way can he make his own strength go further. But in this small Xianjia village, Tang Ge didn't have much hope. After he planned to stay for a few days, he would go directly to Qing County, where he might have a better chance of finding clues to the immortal. But what Tang Ge didn't expect was that Mr. Yan suddenly said at this moment, actually, some villagers in my Xianjia village have seen immortals before. Villagers in Xianjia village have also seen immortals. Hearing Tian Lao's words, Tang Ge was taken aback for a moment, and then suddenly became excited. He couldn't help looking at Elder Tian expectantly, and asked, Grandpa Village Chief, do you know where he saw the immortal? Tian Liaobin regretted what he said just now, because that place is not a place where children can go. Even the skilled hunters in the village dare not go there easily. But looking at the scorching eyes of the child in front of him, Elder Tian couldn't hold back after all, and told about the Yunwu mountain outside Tian's house. At the end, he even persuaded, after all, this is just a rumor, and it has been more than 100 years, no one knows whether it is true or not. Xiaoj, I know you are eager to seek immortality, but if you lose your life, you really have nothing. What good is seeking immortality? So let's stay here. Although your village head grandfather and I don't go to many places, I can help you find a martial arts gym in Qing County to join. End of this chapter. Chapter 346 Reaching the top, perform the first mountain gravel. For Tian Lao's persuasion, Tang Ge didn't seem to hear it, and all his thoughts were on the Yunwu mountain that the other party said. The villagers of Yaoxianjia village saw the traces of immortals in Yunwu mountain. Although no one confirmed that this was true, they finally gave Tang Ge a direction to work hard. Maybe there is something unique there, so there may be immortals passing by. At the end, Tang Ge took a deep breath and said seriously, Grandpa Village Chief, Xiaoje has accepted your wish, but Xiaoje still wants to go and see it. If the rumors are true and false, Xiaoje may come back with all her heart. That place is so dangerous, can you come back alive after going there? Seeing that Tang Ge had made up his mind, even though Mr. Yan had 1,000 words to say, he couldn't help swallowing them at this moment. There are people in the world who love vanity. Some people are greedy for power and sex. There are also people who pursue immortality. No amount of persuasion by this kind of person will be useful. Only when you find that everything is as longing as a flower in a mirror and moon in water in the end will you regret it. But it's too late to regret it. That's all, since you have made up your mind. I won't say anything, go home first, no matter what, you still have to eat this meal. When I turn back, I will ask the Orion in the village to take you to Yunwu Mountain. Maybe you will change your mind when you get there. After finishing speaking, Elder Tian turned around and returned to the yard. He seemed to think that the white-haired man would send the black-haired man away again, and his figure became more and more stooped. Seeing this, Tang Ge could only say silently in his heart, Grandpa Village Chief, Tang Ge failed your kindness, and then followed into the yard. Next. Originally, Tang Ge planned to stay in this Xianjia village for a while, but since he heard the rumors of a fairy trail in Yunwu Mountain, he didn't waste any more time. In the early morning of the next day, he left Xianjia village together with a hunter who entered the outskirts of Yunwu Mountain at the beginning of the year under the repeated instructions of Mr. Tian. This Orion is a middle-aged man. Because he joined the martial arts gym in his early years, although his strength is only in the early days of Haoshan, he is much stronger than ordinary people. Coupled with his excellent body and bow skills, he is a first-class hunter in Xianjia village. But even a hunter with such strength only dared to move around Yunwu Mountain. When he heard that Tang Ge, a boy rescued by the village chief, wanted to go deep into Yunwu Mountain to find immortals, he thought that boy must be crazy. Can people go deep into Yunwu Mountain? It's just that the Orion was too embarrassed to shirk the village chief's request, so he brought Tang Ge with him. But when he looked at Tang Ge, there was obvious sympathy in his eyes. I don't know which family the child escaped from. He is mentally ill at such a young age. Maybe his family let him escape on purpose? Orion thought this way, but Tang Ge didn't care at all. He couldn't wait to reach Yunwu Mountain to see what beasts and poisonous insects were hidden in this mountain, which made people so frightened. That's it. After the two of them left Xianjia village, they were both silent, just kept on their way with their heads sullen. So in just half a day's work, they not only entered Yunwu Mountain, but also reached the handover point where Orion dared not go any further. Oddly enough, there is obviously no trace of fog behind him, and he can clearly see a place more than 10 meters away, but looking ahead, it is already so foggy that he can't see his fingers. He could faintly hear strange low roars from time to time in the fog. The woods were very dense, and even at noon, the high-altitude sun couldn't shine the scorching light in, and the whole environment looked very gloomy. After stopping, Orion was very surprised by the young man who walked with him without breathing for a while. But he still opened his mouth to remind, further ahead is the depths of Yunwu Mountain. I can only send you here, and everything after that can only depend on you. But I still want to persuade you, cherish life and don't seek death. Regardless of whether Tang Ge agreed or not, after speaking, the Orion turned around and quickly returned to the way he came, as if he was afraid that danger would come later. Tang Ge couldn't help laughing at this. Looking at the dense fog ahead, he murmured to himself, I want to see if there are any vicious monsters hiding in here. He immediately lifted his foot and walked in. If the Orion came back at this moment, he would find that the thick fog that made him unable to stretch out his fingers was in front of Tang Ge, as if it did not exist. With a blessing of the ancient holy body's characteristics of avoiding all evil and being invulnerable to all poisons, these fogs will not affect Tang Ge's vision at all. Then, on the way to the top of Yunwu Mountain, he finally knew why Orion and the villagers outside the mountain changed their expressions in this deep mountain, shrouded in thick fog all the year round. Among them, there are actually a large number of poisonous insects and snakes, as well as piranhas that can eat people. In addition, Tang Ge also felt the existence of aura from the mist, so affected by it, the beasts living here are much stronger than the beasts outside. Or it is not an exaggeration to call them monsters. Because these wild beasts have obviously been born with wisdom, after Tang Ge killed a few monsters that were not long-eyed and sent to the door by himself, other monsters dared not provoke Tang Ge anymore. It was also this point that made Tang Ge believe even more that the rumor that the villager of Xianjia village saw fairy here was true. And 30.00% too of the awakening speed of the desolate ancient holy body, coupled with many martial arts skills such as the Xing word secret, Tang Ge was completely unimpeded on the road thereafter. In the end, he finally walked out of the forest through the foggy area and came to the top of Yunwu Mountain. The eyes became extremely clear in an instant, and the sunlight falling from the sky shone on his body, which made Tang Ge unable to bear the urge to sit cross-legged on the ground to practice. The aura here is much richer than that in the foggy forest. Standing on the top of the mountain, looking at the dense forest and the continuous mountains below, Tang Ge couldn't help showing a smile on his face. It's a rare natural cultivation site. I hope I can get the result I want. Then, let's perform the divine power of breaking rocks first. Immediately after observing the situation around the top of the mountain, he went straight to the open space in the middle area with a size of nearly 1,000 square meters. Boom. Hearing Tang Ge yell, the whole person seemed to be crazy, and suddenly started running fast. On the way to run, every step of his foot carried a tremendous amount of force, and the ground made entirely of stones was accompanied by tremors, and he stepped out of deep pits abruptly. Then Tang Ge ran to the mountain wall on the side of the mountain, punched out, and the mountain wall was suddenly covered with cracks. Soon, square blocks of stones were mined by Tang Ge. Each block weighed thousands of caddies, but it was as light as a feather in his hands. In this way, while mining the stones, Tang Ge put them into the deep pits left on the ground by running just now. End of this chapter. Chapter 347 Payoff. The top of Yunwu Mountain. The sudden big movements made by Tang Ge were not because of idle panic, but because he was building a stone house for himself and was planning to live here for a long time. But if it is a simple stone house, it does not meet his determination to find a fairy. So under Tang Ge's divine power shown with the help of the ancient sacred body, it only took a few days to successfully build the stone house. Although there was food and drink in the system space before, Tang Ge did not use the food. Instead, he went down the mountain into the mist, hunted and killed a monster with his own hands and brought it back to the top of the mountain. After skinning it and cramping it, he put it on the fire, and after a while, the delicious smell of barbecue was emitted. With the blowing of the mountain peak, this smell quickly spread for several miles around. Even the birds were attracted and wanted to share part of the food with Tang Ge, but in the end they turned themselves into part of the food in Tang Ge's stomach. That's it. After eating and drinking enough every day, Tang Ge lay directly on the platform in the center of a row of stone houses. He seemed to be sleeping soundly, but in fact, he was already running the furnace of hell to devour spiritual energy and slowly upgrade the ancient holy body schedule. With his physique, neither the cold nor the heat can affect him. As for whether any immortals will come here, Tang Ge is not in a hurry. Anyway, there is a lot of time. The big deal is that after a year or so, I really can't go down the mountain to the county town to try my luck, join a martial arts gym and show my monster's talent in martial arts. Maybe it will also attract the attention of the immortals at that time, but now, just sleep. Unknowingly, on the top of the Yunwu Mountain, where the clouds are pierced into the fog, accompanied by the howling wind, the snoring sounds of snoring and snoring began to spread continuously. If you look at the top of Yunwu Mountain from a high altitude, you will find that the stone house that Tang Ge spent several days building seems to be in disarray, but connected in a line, it actually forms a short sentence. Immortal, please bring me. I don't know if the immortal would not be able to help but be amused if he saw this scene. But Tang Ge is very convinced that once a fairy sees it, even if the target is not the top of the Yunwu Mountain, they will definitely come down to take a look curiously. At that time, with his excellent physique of the ancient holy body, are you afraid that the immortals will look down on him? Impossible. 3 months later. No matter what major event happened in Lin County or the whole Wuyan County, the original big family suddenly bowed to a small family, and even did not hesitate to establish a good relationship with this small family by getting married. Even more. Some of them are not even families, they are just steamed stuffed bun shops on the side of the road, and as a result, they become the targets of the big families vying to curry favor overnight. The rapid change of status made the people who eat melons look confused, not knowing what happened. And those families who knew about it seemed to be deliberately covering it up, and didn't let irrelevant people know the whole story. Regarding this, Tang Ge, who had been on the top of Yunwu Mountain for 3 months, was naturally not clear. Anyway, after going through the initial adaptation period, he has gotten used to the life of waking up early every day to exercise and excavate mountains and gravel, and sleeping at night to upgrade the ancient holy body. After all, the old ancestors had a good saying, that is, the heaven will send a great mission to the Sri Lankan people, and they must first work hard, and do things that ordinary people cannot do. May I ask? In this bitingly cold Yunwu Mountain, which 14-year-old boy can dare to live here alone like Tang Ge, and he is fine? So Tang Ge felt that if he couldn't even enter the fairy gate, it would be really unreasonable. Just, if there are really immortals in this world, I have been waiting here for 3 months, even if you don't come, you have to fart loudly and let me hear it. Lying on the stone bed, Tang Ge couldn't help turning his side to make himself more comfortable. But he didn't notice that in the sky 100 meters away from the top of the mountain, a group of white clouds was suddenly blown away by a gust of air, revealing 2 flying figures of Eugene. These 2 figures were both wearing cyan long gowns with white edges, a man and a woman, who looked to be in their 20s, and they were obviously the immortals that Tang Ge spoke of. Or rather, they are the legendary cultivators. The man is tall and straight, with a handsome appearance. The woman has a graceful figure, fair skin and beautiful appearance. However, the 2 who were originally flying side by side, because of the appearance of the airflow just now, The female monk immediately kept her sword away from the male monk, and spoke with a look of disgust. "Senior brother, why are you like those mortals, and even have this filthy air?" "Junior sister, senior brother, I couldn't hold back for a while, don't blame me, don't blame me." Hearing what the female monk said, the male monk suddenly looked extremely embarrassed, and quickly explained, "It's really because the mundane aura is too thin. If it wasn't for the order of the master, I would definitely stay in the sect and continue to practice." "Huh? So, senior brother, you don't want to come out with junior sister?" The female monk pinched her waist with her hands, her eyes suddenly revealed a dangerous light, and even the flying sword under her feet could not help but turn around, aiming at the male monk. The male monk was so frightened that cold sweat broke out on his forehead. This junior sister is indeed the same as the rumors. If I knew this, why did I say those words just now? Now how to do? Just when the male monk didn't know how to divert his attention, he glanced down inadvertently, and seemed to see something, and suddenly opened his mouth in surprise. "Junior sister, look, there is a natural and spectacular place below, which can actually form such a strange stone scene. Let me read it. What a fairy, please take it, it is simply a miracle." At the end, the male monk couldn't help showing surprise on his face. When the female monk heard what the male monk said, although she doubted whether the other party was deliberately diverting her attention, she still looked in the direction the other party pointed. Then as the black line appeared on her forehead, the anger in her heart burst out all of a sudden. "What a fart. Senior brother, if you can't see clearly, junior sister, I'll send you down to have a look. Didn't you see that big person lying on it?" Boom. Before the male monk could react, a long white belt suddenly appeared in the female monk's hand, and she slapped it directly on the male monk's buttocks. Accompanied by the screams, the male cultivator suddenly lost his balance, and was led by the flying sword under his feet and fell headlong downwards. The female monk is extremely proud. HMPH, Daddy is right, when you treat a man, you have to scold him every 2 days and beat him every 3 days, otherwise he will be like a wild horse that has run loose. It's very difficult to train. As she said that, she also drove the flying sword and chased after him at the same time. Tang Ge, who was lying sideways on the stone bed on the top of Yunwu Mountain, also seemed to be frightened. Suddenly, a fish leaped over the dragon's gate and stood up instantly. In his mind, the system prompt sound appeared just now. "Ding dong, congratulations to the host, you shocked the male monk and got, shock points, friar? Shock worth, points?" After being slightly stunned for a moment, Tang Ge's face suddenly showed excitement. End of this chapter. Chapter 348. Brother, I found a treasure. Maybe the system didn't know the name of the male monk, or maybe it was intentional, so the 3 words male monk appeared in the notification tone. But Tang Ge didn't care about this. All he knew was that when he heard the system prompt, he knew that his 3-month wait had not been in vain, and finally the person who wanted to come had finally arrived. Hard work pays off. Sure enough, there are immortal cultivators in this world. For a moment, Tang Ge was extremely excited. But in order not to arouse the suspicion of the monk who appeared, he stretched his waist after standing up, pretending to be as if nothing had happened and preparing to jump off the stone bed. It's just that Tang Ge had just jumped off the stone bed when he heard a piercing whistling sound coming from the direction of his head, and then saw a figure slamming heavily on the word Xian. The entire word Xian made of square stones was smashed to pieces in an instant, and a deep pit appeared on the spot. Seeing this, Tang Ge was stunned. "Are you so excited to see me?" But just when he was about to run over to check the situation, suddenly another ray of sword light descended from the sky and appeared directly in front of his eyes. It was a female monk stepping on a flying sword. I saw that after the female monk put away the flying sword under her feet, she didn't even look at the situation of the senior brother in the deep pit. After walking in front of Tang Ge, she looked at Tang Ge with great interest. A gust of fragrant wind came. Although Tang Ge judged from the fluctuation of the female monk's breath, if he relied on the power of the ancient holy body, it was very likely that he would kill the opponent with a single punch. But the immortal cultivator he finally met, how could he do this? So resisting the urge to try it in his heart, Tang Ge immediately pretended to be shocked and said, Are you the fairy in the legend, Puff?" Because she didn't pay attention to it at high altitude, after landing at this moment, the female monk realized that the man in front of her was actually just a teenager. Hearing the boy's words, she couldn't help laughing. "Well, my sister is a fairy in the legend, so can you tell me how old you are and why you are here, fairy?" "Sister fairy, My name is Tang Ge. I am 14 years old this year. I came here because I heard that there are legends about immortals appearing here. Sister, I want to cultivate immortality. Can you take me away? Tang Ge pretended to be apprehensive, and looked at the female monk expectantly. Only 14 years old? After hearing Tang Ge's words, the female monk had a surprised expression on her pretty face. Although she judged that Tang Ge was young through the immaturity on Tang Ge's face and other circumstances, she did not expect that the other party was only 14 years old. This made the nun even more interested. So when faced with Tang Ge's desire to become an immortal, she didn't make fun of her, but said softly, "Can I let Sister Fairy touch you first?" Not far behind, a figure crawled out of the deep pit just now. As a result, he seemed to be stimulated by the gentle voice of the female monk, and his hand fell back again after a moment of relaxation. Lying in the deep pit, the figure stared at the sky speechlessly. Is this the violent junior sister he knew? The female monk didn't notice the reaction of the senior in the deep pit. At this moment, all her thoughts were on Tang Ge, and her eyes were very gentle. Tang Ge didn't think that the other party touched him to take advantage, so he nodded obediently. Well, Sister Fairy, let's touch it. After speaking, he directly closed his eyes. The female monk didn't think much about it. After placing her slender hand on Tang Ge's shoulder, a strange energy flowed out of her hand and directly entered Tang Ge's body. Feeling this trace of energy, Tang Ge immediately confirmed that it was the spiritual power mastered by the monk. So he didn't resist, but let the female monk use this trace of spiritual power to start an all-round investigation in his body. Anyway, the system has already sealed all his other strengths except the ancient saint physique, and Tang Ge is not worried that any of his secrets will be discovered. On the contrary, he is also happy that the other party can discover his super strong physique and vitality. As a result, the female monk did not disappoint Tang Ge. When she combined the unique method of the sect to infiltrate the spiritual power into the body of the young man in front of her, the female monk not only confirmed that what the other party said was true, but that he was indeed only 14 years old. Moreover, she also discovered the turbulent energy and blood in the young man in front of her like a billow on fire, as well as the extremely strong flesh, muscles and bones. The blood is even mixed with a little bit of golden light. It is obviously golden blood. If it hadn't been confirmed that the young man was really a human being, the female monk would have thought that she was facing a monster in human form. Could it be that a powerful physique handed down from the ancient times in the records of the sect failed? For a moment, the female monk was filled with shock. And when she looked at Tang Ge again, it was as if she was looking at a rough jade. Her eyes were full of eagerness. Tang Ge, can you tell my sister who your parents are? Have you ever felt the condition of your own body, such as infinite strength, or other characteristics? I don't know what happened. My previous memory has been lost. Hearing the female monk asking about her life experience, Tang Ge, who had just heard the system notification sound in his head, resisted the urge to laugh, pretended to be disappointed, and shook his head. Then he continued, however, I am very strong and energetic. I always feel like I can kill a cow with one punch. Oh? You have great strength? Then show it off and let my sister see how strong you are, the female monk said with great anticipation. Tang Ge did not hesitate, and walked directly to the stone bed where he had been lying before. This stone bed was specially made by him, and it was much heavier than other stones, at least 10,000 caddies in weight, and no one could lift it. Even if a low-level monk wants to lift it up, I'm afraid it will take a lot of effort, and they still need special means. But when Tang Ge walked to the front and back of the stone bed, he didn't even need to prepare. He just stretched out both hands to grab a stone corner of the stone bed, and lifted his arms up. The stone bed, which weighed 10,000 caddies, was lifted up easily by him as if it were nothing. And in order to shock the female monk even more, after raising the stone bed above his head, Tang Ge threw it into the air like a juggler and then caught it directly. After repeating this several times, he put the stone bed back on the ground without blushing or panting, and then turned to look at the nun who was in a daze. Sister Fairy, what do you think of my strength? Is it infinite strength? Hearing Tang Ge's anxious and expectant inquiry, the female monk finally came to her senses. But she didn't answer Tang Ge's words, but suddenly turned around to look at the deep pit not far behind, and yelled out extremely excitedly. Brother! Come and see, I found a treasure. End of this chapter. Chapter 349. There are really immortals in this world. The female monk's scream was not insignificant, and it instantly broke through the blockade of the whistling cold wind lingering around, and spread throughout the entire Yunwu mountain. Immediately afterwards, a figure jumped out of the deep pit with a swoosh, and came to the side of the female monk in the blink of an eye. It was the male monk accompanying the female monk. As soon as the male monk came over, he glanced back and forth like a torch, and asked anxiously, "Junior sister, where's the treasure? Quickly show it to senior brother." As for Tang Ge, although the male monk saw it, he didn't take it seriously. But what he didn't expect was that just as he asked, his junior sister pointed at Tang Ge and said excitedly, "It's him, people, precious. Can there be an equal sign between the two?" The male monk looked confused, couldn't help looking at his junior sister, and blurted out what he wanted to say. "Junior sister, it should be me, senior brother, who fell from the sky just now? Even if you break your brain, it should be senior brother's turn. How come you, senior sister, have become stupid?" But as soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly regretted it as predicted. Another long white belt flew over, and flew the male monk with a wry smile on his face. And the female monk holding the long belt gritted her teeth and said angrily, "Brother Stinky, you forced me to be angry again, making my image of a lady unsafe." After a while, the male monk who flew out flew back again. Although he was severely beaten by his junior sister twice in succession, not only was he not injured, even the blue gown on his body was free from any dust or wrinkles. It's just that the majesty of being a senior brother has been completely lost. But the male monk not only couldn't get angry, but he had to comfort him. "Junior sister, don't be angry, it's the fault of senior brother, so can junior sister tell senior brother what's going on?" Hearing what the male monk said, the female monk snorted and put away the long white belt before accepting the male monk's apology. Then when she turned her attention back to Tang Ge, she suddenly became excited again, and directly told the male monk what she had investigated just now. After the male monk finished listening, he immediately came to Tang Ge, and stretched out his hand to check Tang Ge's body with spiritual power. Then there was an unbelievable expression on his face. "It's terrible. It's really terrible. Junior sister, if this little guy is brought back to the sect by us, and then joins your father's line, I'm afraid it will be the rhythm of flying off the ground." This is not an exaggeration at all. Although in the eyes of the male monk, Tang Ge is just a 14-year-old ordinary boy. But the majestic vitality in his body and the ki and blood like raging flames made the male monk seem to be facing a powerful body training monk. Therefore, the male monk absolutely believes that even if the young man in front of him has no spiritual root aptitude, once he steps into cultivation with his powerful physique, his achievements will definitely not be low. It's just that people with such a physique don't have spiritual roots. For a while, when he looked at Tang Ge again, the male monk seemed to be looking at a treasure, and the heat in his eyes was stronger than that of the female monk. Besides, the female monk saw this and couldn't help but speak arrogantly. "Brother, I didn't lie to you, did I?" "Yes. How could my junior sister lie to me? This boy is not only a treasure, but also a living treasure. If he can bring it back to the sect master and elders will be very satisfied." Hearing what the female monk said, the male monk nodded hastily. And he felt that even if he gave up the next task and only brought this young man back to the sect, not only would the sect not punish him, but he would be rewarded with a large amount of contribution points. After all, a genius with unlimited future achievements is something that can be met but not sought after by any sect. Being able to meet them now, male monks naturally don't want to let them go easily. So he immediately looked at Tang Ge, and said gently, "My surname is Yun and my name is Hai, just call me senior brother Yun. I saw it in the sky before. You put it up when the fairy asked for a belt, right?" So senior brother Yun and sister fairy are both legendary immortals." Tang Ge nodded excitedly, and his eyes were full of curiosity. Hearing Tang Ge's words, the male monk Yun Hai unconsciously puffed up his chest. "Junior sister and I are not immortals, but immortal cultivators who seek immortality, but to you, junior brother, and the common people in the ordinary world, we are indeed no different from immortals. And in our sect, there have been real immortals." In the end, a sense of pride towards the sect suddenly emerged from Yun Hai. It turns out that there are really immortals in this world. Tang Ge's eyes were bright and full of anticipation for the answer from senior brother Yun in front of him. And he was sure that if what the other party said was true, the other party's sect must have a high status in this world. So after Tang Ge took a deep breath, he immediately pretended to be nervous and said, "Then can I cultivate immortals with you?" "Ha ha ha ha, of course, no problem." After getting Tang Ge's consent, Yun Hai burst out laughing happily. Even the happy eyes of the female monk narrowed into a crescent shape. However, although it is determined that joining the sect in Tang Ge's situation is not a problem, he still has to go through the process of accepting disciples in the sect. It just so happened that Yunhei and his junior sister left the sect to go down the mountain this time, in order to go to the secular world and choose newcomers with spiritual root qualifications to replenish the sect with fresh blood. Therefore, in order not to waste time, Yunhei controlled the flying sword, took Tang Ge and his junior sister to leave the Yunwu mountain, and headed towards the destination Boundless Mountain of Daking Country. During this period, Tang Ge finally knew the name of the female monk and the situation of the sect behind her from senior brother Yunhei. The female monk's name is Zhu Zudang, and both Yunhei and Yunhei are from Hanhei sect, one of the 5 sects. And both of them are inner disciples of Hanhei Zong. The only difference is that Zhu Zudang has a stronger identity and background, and has a father who is the leader of the peak. Tang Ge already knew that if there were no accidents in the future, as soon as he joined the Hanhei sect, he would directly become a disciple under the line of senior sister Zhu's father. This reassured Tang Ge a lot. At least once he joined the sect, he had such a strong backer, which was enough for him to avoid a lot of troubles, and he could concentrate on obtaining the shock value. As for more questions about the world of cultivating immortals, and the strength of these 2 senior brothers and sisters, the 2 of them kept a secret for the time being and did not tell Tang Ge. Tang Ge couldn't help curling his lips secretly. If he breaks out with all his strength, coupled with many martial arts skills, he is absolutely sure that he can kill these 2 immortal cultivators. So is this kind of strength worth selling? Thinking of this, Tang Ge looked at the beautiful scenery in the sky with excitement like a curious baby, and took this opportunity to check his shock value at the moment 320 points. Finally it is no longer 0. But such a small shock value really made Tang Ge wonder if he had encountered a fake immortal cultivator. Could it be that these 2 senior brothers and sisters are weaker than a great soul master? End of this chapter. Period. Chapter 350 Past 3 levels in Xingxiante. Within the territory of Daking Country, there is a mountain range in 4 directions and 5 directions, stretching for thousands of miles, with forests all over it. Because it can't see the end at a glance, it is called the Endless Mountain Range. Among them, there is a 1,000-foot peak in the Endless Mountain Range, named Endless Mountain. Because of the rugged terrain around Wu Mountain, there are many monsters, beasts and poisonous insects. Even if the powerful warriors in Daking want to get close, it will take a lot of effort. So few people go to Endless Mountain without incident. But at this time, without knowing what happened, a large number of figures suddenly began to appear in the mountains, where there were only the roars of monsters and the chirping of birds and insects. Most of these figures are teenagers between the ages of 7 and 15, and they are guarded by powerful warriors. Their target is the Endless Mountain. In a valley outside the Endless Mountain, a large number of tents and temporary wooden houses made of trees have already been set up, row after row appearing densely packed. As for the teenagers gathered here, there are as many as 1,000. And without exception, they all stared wide-eyed at the Endless Mountain piercing into the clouds outside the valley, as if they were looking at a place of pilgrimage, and their eyes were full of longing suddenly. Accompanied by the appearance of the sword light, 2 figures shrouded in light flew from a distance, and after passing through the valley below, they disappeared into the Endless Mountains in front of them. It's a fairy. The fairy finally appeared. Great, the Immortal Ascension Conference will start in a few days. Wu Hao will definitely pass the test and be favored by the Immortals. Work hard. Lin Mu, you can definitely do it. When the Immortal who controlled the sword light appeared, there were bursts of exclamations in the already lively valley. All the teenagers couldn't help clenching their fists. Their faces turned extremely red with excitement at the same time. Beyond the valley, on the top of the Endless Mountain shrouded in clouds and mist, there are pavilions and pavilions, surrounded by transparent light curtains, completely blocking the howling cold wind outside. Inside the light curtain, the birds are singing and the flowers are fragrant, as if in a fairyland call out. Accompanied by the sound of piercing through the air, the 2 sword lights that appeared above the valley suddenly moved from far to near, and entered through the transparent light curtain without any hindrance. At this time, the figure above the flying sword was completely revealed. It was Yunhei, Zhu Zuding and Tang Ge who came from Yunwu Mountain. After they arrived, they seemed to have alarmed the people in the other attics below, and soon a few small huts sneaked out from the crack in the door. They are all teenagers in their 70s, 8s and teens, both male and female. When these teenagers looked at Tang Ge who was standing on the flying sword, some were curious, while others were disdainful, as if the sky and the earth were their biggest feeling. After Tang Ge noticed it, he instantly judged in his heart that these young people below should be the same as him who were favored by the people of Xianzong in advance as predicted. Yun Hai, who was standing behind Tang Ge, smiled slightly and took the initiative to explain. This is the place where 5 of my sects hold the Immortal Ascension Conference, so apart from those who regularly participate in the trials in the valley under the mountain, those with extraordinary talents like you who have been discovered in advance will come here first with the leaders of each sect. After the Immortal Ascension Conference starts, you will conduct the trial assessment together with other people who participated in the trial. Not only are 5 sects, but also the other upper 3 sects and the lower 7 sects also have their own places to hold the Immortal Ascension Assembly, and they will not be interfered with each other. How can they get along so harmoniously? Hearing Brother Yun Hai's explanation, Tang Ge couldn't help being surprised. But when you think about it carefully, this arrangement seems very reasonable after all. The ranks of sects are different, and the requirements for selecting disciples are also different. If all the sects gather together, it will inevitably be unfair to the low-level sects, resulting in various conflicts. This is not a good thing for the monks who have always followed the Odiku-style cultivation philosophy. Simply in order to avoid trouble, simply call the king to the king, the general to the general, and call their own. Okay, brother, let's go to our sect's residence first. There are still 3 days before the trial begins. There is plenty of time for Xiao Tang to understand these things. Seeing that Yun Hai would continue to stay in the mid-air and continue talking, Zhu Zudeng finally couldn't help interrupting. Her pretty face was full of impatience. And after finishing speaking, she fell straight down and entered a 3-story attic with the words Hanhaizong engraved on it near the left. This is the Hanhai sect's residence here, and it exists all year round. However, because of the protection of the formation, no matter how long time passes, there will be no collapse and damage. Yun Hai smiled awkwardly and flew over with Tang Ge, who was driving the flying sword from start to finish. Except for the youngsters who just showed up, none of the other 4 sect leaders showed up, as if they never came at all. Tang Ge was also puzzled by this. But after temporarily settling in the attic, he learned from senior brother Yun Hai that although the heads of the various sects had arrived, they were all concentrating on cultivation before the trial assessment began. And it's not just here, it's the same in every sect because the monks seem to be aloof and have incomparable scenery, but they are actually fighting for their fate, and every realm has to go through various tests. After passing the test, then you can continue to rush up. Can't pass the test, no doubt like a mortal, but in the end it's just a pile of loess. So unless necessary, the monks don't want you to kill me, they will be like the Odiku in Tang Ge's cognition, practicing in seclusion all the year round, just looking for the road to be promising. This time, if it wasn't because of his junior sister who pulled him out, Yun Hai wouldn't have ended his cultivation, and left the sect to waste time in this secular world of course. Song Yiwang lost his horse. How do you know it is not a blessing? Being able to receive a newcomer with excellent qualifications like Tang Ge for the sect is also the biggest harvest of Yun Hai and Zhu Zudang's brothers and sisters going out this time. However, because there are still 3 days before the trial assessment, after explaining Tang Ge's doubts, the 2 of them returned to their room and started a short retreat. As for Tang Ge, although he has not entered the cultivation world of this world, he has a preliminary understanding. Perhaps there is no guarantee that all monks are either in retreat or on the way to retreat, as Yun Hai said, but Tang Ge was still very satisfied. What's so good about fighting and killing? Isn't it delicious to practice it? In addition to these basic common sense, Tang Ge also knew the trial content of the Ascension to Immortal Conference in advance. There are 3 tests in total, namely the Mountain of Swords, the Sea of Fire, and the final Spiritual Root test. If you pass all 3 tests, you will definitely be able to join any of the 5 sects. If only 2 of them pass, each sect will determine whether or not to stay or not according to the test results of the trial players. Tang Ge was not worried about this at all. On the contrary, he cares about how much shock value the nearly 1,000 contestants can provide him in the end, so he has decided to perform enough to shock everyone. But before that, Tang Ge still needs to confirm one thing. End of this chapter. End of this chapter. Thank you so much for reading until the end. Don't forget to give it a like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription or donation encourages us to continue. Thank you all. See you in the next video.